The story begins with a man standing on a mountain of corpses. He asked Luo Way why they did this to him, remembering they were like brothers who fought together through life and death. Luo Way recalled the beginning of the calamity. Monsters emerged from strange spatial rifts, sowing chaos. Over time, these rifts came to be called dungeons, and those who touched them gained mysterious powers called classes. For this reason, the class core was established to subdue the dungeons, and they progressed successfully. Luo Way watched the protagonist closely, revealing that this was the very reason he had to be eliminated. The man had become uncontrollable. Powerful class users could easily disrupt the order of the empire, and he, having surpassed even the SSS rank, was the most dangerous enemy of all. Supreme power had to remain in the hands of the royal family for the empire to remain stable. With eyes full of rage, the protagonist asked if this was just an excuse to massacre his family and friends. With malice in his eyes, Luo Way claimed he was doing it for the stability of the empire. Before the protagonist could even catch his breath, Luo Way unleashed a powerful explosion, revealing that he had tampered with his armor long ago. The explosion would also inject a compound poison into his wounds. Luo Way knew that after a SSS rank battle, the protagonist wouldn't have the strength to resist. To ensure this, Luo Way prepared an entire army, seeing it as his final act of respect. Just before dying, the protagonist remembered moments with Luo Way. In that instant, his hidden skill, Mirror World, met its activation conditions. Mirror World, a SSS rank hidden skill, was the ultimate ability that reversed everything. This is the reincarnation part of our manhwa recap. He lost his life, and his soul sank into a lake. Decades later, two boys were torturing another by tying him to a tree and submerging him in the lake. One of them punched him in the stomach and told his friend to submerge him again. As they tortured him, they couldn't help but mock him, deciding to keep him underwater longer to teach him a lesson if he kept faking it. They found his expression hilarious and planned to pull him out just to hit him a few more times. The boy could no longer hold his breath, not understanding why it was always him who had to suffer. In that instant, the protagonist's soul began to awaken. A boy with glasses approached the bullies and asked them to stop. As the other boy was about to die, one of the bullies turned around, and with an arrogant look, replied that if he was about to die, he should just heal himself, since that's what a healer is for, even though he knew it wouldn't be very useful. He then called the boy with glasses a hypocrite, since he was the one who led them to him. So if the boy died, it would be his fault. The boy with glasses got nervous, saying he only did it because they forced him. This enraged the bully, who prepared to hit him. Then, something strange happened, and a bright light erupted from the lake. The bullies fled in fear, shouting that a dungeon had appeared and they needed to escape, and since the new dungeon was beyond their capabilities, the boy with glasses focused on the one they were torturing. Seeing that he was still in the water, he ran towards the rope, knowing he had to save him. At that moment, the lake dried up and monsters appeared. The boy with glasses started untying the knots, and while he was distracted, a monster lunged toward him. Just then, the tied-up boy grabbed him by the clothes and pulled him away from the attack. He then reached out his hand and used a skill called Glacial Impact. The system notified him that he had used basic heal on the lesser demon, but it failed because the target's HP was already full. The boy with glasses got nervous, not understanding why he was healing the monster. When the monster tried to attack again, he summoned a shield, blocking the attack just in time. When the protagonist opened the information window, he saw that his name was Jun Chai, and he had the Chanter class. He realized he had cast a healing spell, and that this wasn't his original body. Upon entering a dungeon, one would link to the system and get a random initial class that was supposed to be unchangeable. Afterward, they would grow and become stronger in the dungeon, acquiring skills from their class. However, he had been a warrior who reached the pinnacle. At that moment, he had used a skill called Mirror World. Then he was trapped there until he heard that boy's cry of pain. He finally understood that he had been reborn in his body. It wasn't a happy thought, but he thanked the boy for giving him a chance for revenge. The boy with glasses informed Yoon that monsters were surrounding them and asked for help. At most, he could only handle 3. The protagonist knew his body was weak. Even these small enemies were beyond his capabilities. At his speed, he couldn't run. Opening his skill window, he saw that they were all useless. Basic heal restored 1.4 HP to a target, and entangling vines immobilized an enemy with a low success rate. The Chanter was highly specialized. Its strengths were in support, but it was outclassed in every other role. It wasn't surprising that this class was always looked down upon. For now, with his old combat instincts, he could hold out for a little while. Jun Chai dodged the monster's attack, aware that he needed a quick way out, as he would die if his stamina ran out. The hidden skill, Mirror World, was his only hope. The protagonist dodged an attack, not knowing how the skill worked, and touched the monster, but it failed because the conditions weren't met. He didn't know if his level was too low, or if it required a real mirror. Using the skill on the monster again, it failed once more due to his insufficient level. Noticing this, he concluded that Mirror World required a reflective surface to activate. The level issue couldn't be solved yet, so he decided to try another target. When the protagonist used the skill on the monster's weapon, it failed again due to his low level. He tried it on a ragged loincloth, but it also failed for the same reason. The boy with glasses got nervous and told him to stop wasting time with useless skills, as he couldn't hold on much longer. A blast of energy shot down from the sky, and a monster called the Level 10 Deformed Lord appeared. The boy with glasses knew they were done for. An elite monster like this required at least level 10 to be defeated. More blasts of energy fell from the sky, and his eyes widened in fear, causing him to fall to the ground. Hundreds of ferocious monsters emerged. While the protagonist was using his skill, the monsters charged. Jun Chai couldn't use his skill on the rocks, wondering if the level difference was too great. So the protagonist decided to use his skill on Xiaoyi's makeshift barrier, but the system notified him that it failed because he couldn't reverse the skills of others. Realizing he couldn't reverse someone else's skills, he smiled, as this meant he could reverse his own. The protagonist used his skill on himself, and Mirror World successfully reversed his Entangling Vines skill. This is a classic, overpowered main character move. Jun Chai activated Chaotic Thorns, causing thousands of spines to erupt from the ground. Just as one of the monsters tried to attack, another monster, surrounded by a red aura, struck it down, saving Xiaoyi. He was a bit confused, not knowing what was happening, but the protagonist realized the skill's effect had been completely inverted. Instead of immobilizing, it now caused confusion. Entangling Vines used to trap an enemy with a low probability of immobilization, but with the inverted enhancement, it became Chaotic Thorns. The thorns would now attack a target with a low probability of causing confusion. The monsters began to attack each other in this chaotic action manhwa scene. This was due to the confusion effect, which made the affected units attack randomly. The protagonist smiled, realizing that a useless skill had become powerful just by being inverted. This made him wonder what would happen if he inverted his other skills. Mirror World truly lived up to its reputation as an SSS-Rank hidden skill. It didn't just reverse the effects of skills, it also applied a general enhancement. If he had used the normal version of this ability, the success rate would have been low. The restriction would have lasted only 1 second at most, nowhere near its current power. Our boy picked up a sword from the ground and wondered what would happen if he inverted his remaining skills. This manhwa recap is getting intense. His attention focused on Empowered Strike. It cost 20 mana points, lasted for 30 seconds, and gave a 5% attack boost to one unit, with the effect ending upon consuming mana points. When Yoon inverted this skill, it became Deceptive Blade. It cost 40 mana points, lasted for 60 seconds, and gave a 10% attack boost for every use of mana. He activated Deceptive Blade, and his sword emanated a powerful aura. He noticed that each skill use now gave a 10% increase in attack power. Deceptive Blade was still active, with 60 seconds remaining. By activating this, any skill would increase his attack power. The potential was incredible. Yoon leveled up. He was now at level 6. He saw that many monsters had died in their infighting, and noted they gave good experience upon death. When a monster tried to sneak up on him, he reacted quickly and blocked the attack. Yoon checked his HP bar, 480 health and 120 mana. He saw that leveling up had fully restored his mana while the monsters remained in chaos. He decided to test this Deceptive Blade. Yoon activated Chaotic Thorns, consuming mana points. This triggered the effect of Deceptive Blade, causing a rapid decrease in his mana points, while his attack power repeatedly increased by 10% with each consumption. He now had 12 mana left, but his Deceptive Blade had increased his attack by 120%. The power of this reincarnation is off the charts. There were 44 seconds of the duration left. His eyes gleamed as he focused on an approaching monster. He realized this skill was game-breaking, allowing him to easily reach 2.2 times his normal attack power. As the monster attacked, our boy dodged the blow, moved behind, and made a deep cut on the back and then on the stomach. Koi was shocked. He couldn't believe it was Jun Chai. Watching his movements, he wondered how a level 5 enchanter had such capability. Since when do enchanters have such skills? Our boy kept fighting against the monsters, eliminating them one by one with his level 6 stats, 120 mana points, and a regeneration of 1 mana point per second. He realized he could reach 2.3 times his attack power. In an instant, he defeated a level 11 monster and blushed. He noticed that his strength barely matched these level 11 elites. Then, a hand emerged from the ground. Junch was alert when a level 21 monster, the Battle Demon Chimera, emerged from the ground and roared. It turned and massacred the small monsters in one blow. Kaoji's eyes filled with fear, while our boy was surprised to see a hidden boss level 21 in this dungeon. The boss charged at him. When he tried to use chaotic spikes, he failed because the monster was immune to chaos. Before the monster attacked, Kaoji stepped in and summoned his shield. Yuncha was surprised and soon saw someone familiar. A blond boy called him foolish, reminding him that he had told him not to advance. Our boy's eyes widened. The boss attacked hard, breaking the shield that Keiji summoned and throwing his body to the ground. Yuncha ran towards him, extended his hand, and began to use his skills. He activated basic healing on Kuoyu, restoring 1 HP. This consumed mana points, leaving him with 54. Deceptive Blade activated, giving 10% more damage. Then basic healing was used again on Xiaoji, now with a critical hit that restored 5 HP. Our boy's mana points dropped to 1. He thought that a bard's healing skills were very poor, and asked Xiaoqi if he had any health potions. He replied that he had one for emergencies, and our boy suggested he take it. His trick blade had 85 seconds left. The boss started killing the other monsters. Junhee knew he was still no match for this boss, but the mobs were almost dead. He had a plan. Showing his sword, he asked Koshi to hold on for 1 minute while he finished off the monsters, leaving him surprised. Our boy moved like lightning, cutting the monsters to pieces. The duration of his trick sword had reached 0. Yun leveled up, restoring his HP and mana points to 8,000 or 20. He used the Deceptive Blade with Chaotic Spikes several times. Each use of mana activated the effect of the Deceptive Blade, increasing his attack by 10% each time. He knew he needed a 400% increase in attack to defeat the boss. He massacred more monsters, leveling up again. This restored his mana to 110. He activated Chaotic Spikes, gaining 10% more attack damage and lowering his mana to 101. He repeated Chaotic Spikes, achieving another 10% increase in attack. With his mana at 92, he knew he had to use Chaotic Spikes 40 times in 50 seconds, which required reaching level 10. Kaoju was amazed. Incredulous, Yun leveled up several times. The boss prepared to attack, but he began to glow. He was now at level 12. His enhanced sword had a 510% increase and lasted 95 seconds. Enough to face this boss. Yuncha moved quickly, cutting off its arm, then he appeared behind and launched several slashes, causing the monster intense pain. Before it could react, our boy tore it to pieces. In an instant, he defeated a level 21 boss with over 10,000 HP. Upon defeating it, our boy leveled up 3 times. Reaching level 15, Kaoji was in shock, not knowing if he was dreaming, wondering if a level 5 enchanter had really cleared a new dungeon by himself. With the dungeon lord defeated, the dungeon was cleared. He approached and asked Yun if it was really him. The monsters dropped items, and the system indicated that he should collect them. He wanted to know how he had become so strong. Suddenly, he began to remember his past, and seeing Ku, he asked what his relationship was with Cao Ben. Cao Ji was in shock, as he didn't know how Yun Chai knew his great-grandfather's nickname. Yun Chai was somewhat surprised to learn that he was actually the great-grandson of Cao Ben. He remembered Cao Ben, and his eyes filled with sadness, thinking that everyone he knew had been killed by Luo Way. Before asking more about Cao Ben, Koi looked away and said there was no need to talk about him. Now, if Yun Chai didn't want to answer, he didn't have to say anything. There was no need to humiliate him like that. Yung Shi was somewhat confused because he didn't understand what was happening. Cao Yuer mentioned that although he didn't know why Yun had been hiding his true strength all this time, he advised that they should return to school. The next day, the school would organize a visit to the Modern History Memorial Hall, and skipping classes would make them stand out. Yun clenched his fist tightly, feeling furious. He decided to listen to him, but he knew he couldn't reveal his identity yet. If Cao Yue investigated too much, he might suspect. Junk thought about the Modern History Memorial Hall. There should be records of what happened after his death. The next day, they took the subway to school. The students were excited. Times had changed a lot after being dead for so many years. The world had mutated enormously. He couldn't believe they used dungeon products to move carriages. Many things had emerged that he had never seen before. However, he had seen some in dungeons before. He opened his system inventory. He wondered if only the items dropped by monsters could be taken out of a dungeon. He equipped the Chimera Bone Ring. It was a level 14 ring made from the rib of the flesh and bone dungeon lord. The battlefield Chimera allowed the wearer to attach a Chimera limb to their body. He took out the robust physique skill book from his inventory. It was of high quality, a passive skill, and its learnable class was universal. He noticed that equipment and skill books could be extracted through the inventory. They could also be bought and sold outside of dungeons. He had the robust physique skill active. It was a permanent passive skill that reduced physical damage taken. Things that couldn't be stored in the inventory after defeating the Lord must disappear with the dungeon. His eyes shone with confusion. He was unaware of what happened after his death. Shortly after arriving at the Modern History Memorial Hall, the first thing he saw was the statue of Luo Way, the great ruler of the kingdom, the emperor who ended the disasters of the dungeons. The teacher guided the students through the Modern History Memorial Hall. He explained that many knew this place was the battlefield of the famous rebellion over 50 years ago. The teacher explained that at that time they were very distressed by the dungeons. He added that, especially after the terrifying SSS-Rank dungeon emerged, everyone lived in fear. King Luo Way led the army on an expedition. Despite suffering many casualties, he conquered the terrifying dungeon. But just then he faced a planned rebellion. Its mastermind, as everyone knew, was Jun Chai. Yuno was the man the king trusted deeply, but ended up being an ungrateful traitor. Yun Shi couldn't help but feel furious seeing what history had become. They cleared the SSS-Rank dungeon and were ambushed. The teacher clenched his fist, saying they could not imagine the pain of being betrayed under those circumstances. But their king overcame this sorrow and fought with blood and valor. Finally, with the help of the hero Din Kun, he successfully suppressed the rebellion. Yuncha's eyes filled with curiosity upon hearing the name Din Kun. He wondered if that person really existed. The bullies who tortured Yun at the lake appeared somewhat confused to see that they were still alive. They wondered how it was possible, since he and Yue had been dragged into the new dungeon. One of the bullies said that the dungeon had been cleared. He thought that for a new dungeon to be cleared so quickly, a master must be nearby. According to him, they were very lucky to have found that master. Our boy focused on them. He noticed they were the ones who had been torturing the owner of his body. Everyone approached Ding Shu to find out what he was talking about. Reacting in disbelief, they wondered if he had really found a new dungeon and, more surprisingly, if he survived a disaster in it. Ding Shu put his arm around Cao Yu's shoulder and commented that he was very lucky to come out alive. He whispered that they almost took them to that dungeon that day and demanded to know how they planned to settle that debt. Cao Qi got nervous, making it clear that it was Ding Shu's fault. He threatened to report him, accusing him of almost causing his death and Yun's. Ding Shu grabbed Cao Yu by the head, asking him what was going through his mind and realizing that he seemed to have no idea about the situation at all. Din Shu asked Xiao to look at the statue in front of them and observe his ancestor being trampled by the hero. He revealed that he was the traitor Cohen and that Koi was his descendant. Finally, he asked if he really believed that anyone would support him. Ding Shu started shouting, saying that Xiao Qi could insult him, but not his ancestor, leaving Kai in shock. Everyone gathered, knowing that Ding Shu's grandfather was the hero Din Kun. Upon hearing this, our boy's eyes shone with fury. The students noticed that the person next to him was Qiao Ji, the descendant of Qiaowen. For them, that the descendant of a traitor insulted a hero was a sign of a world turned upside down. They remembered that their ancestor Zoan had killed many people, and if the hero hadn't intervened, who knows how many more would have died. Ding Shu pretended, making it clear that he didn't care what they said about him behind his back, but he couldn't allow them to insult his ancestor to his face. The teacher approached Xiao Qi. He placed a hand on his shoulder and asked him to apologize. He told him that, as his teacher, he had always been fair and reminded him that the hero had forgiven his family in the past. He concluded that even if he didn't feel gratitude for this, he had no right to defame him. After saying this, the teacher left. Ding Su touched his head and commented that if he beat him up in public, people would just cheer him on. No one was going to help a fierce dog that was being beaten. Moreover, Kaoju was a very despised dog. He grabbed him by the hair and asked if he really believed that he, a descendant of a hero, could be wrong. He was about to hit Xiao when someone kicked him in the face, throwing him to the ground. Xiao opened his eyes in surprise. It was Yun Chai. With eyes filled with rage, he asked if the hero's family had no time to discipline their brats. The students began to record, doubting if it was really Yun Chai. They commented that he looked like a completely different person and couldn't believe he had dared to hit Ding Shu. According to them, he was crazy, and some remembered that he was only level 5, the weakest in his class. They wondered what had happened to him to dare to hit Ding Shu. Without parents and always too gloomy to have friends, they thought he had lost his mind. Ding Shu wiped his cheek, making it clear that Yun Chai was just a punching bag who should be grateful that Ding Shu wasn't after him. He couldn't believe he had still dared to attack him. While he wasn't paying attention, he and his friends charged at our boy. Yun Chai moved like lightning, dodging their attacks and hitting them before they could react. Din Shu fell to his knees on the ground and began to spit blood. The students started murmuring among themselves. Din Shu was in shock, as he couldn't believe how fast Yun Chai was. The students were confused, not understanding what had happened. They wondered how Ding Shu had fallen so easily, and if he was really a weakling. Ding Shu was furious, unable to believe how a low-level 5 support could be stronger than him. He immediately activated the Hell skill, which increased his attack power by 25%. He equipped the hammer forged in fire that granted him 314 points of attack power. He thought Yun had just been lucky, and without wasting another second, he charged at him. Our boy moved quickly, and taking advantage of the opening, hit his jaw. He used the Mischief Blade skill that increased his attack power by 80%. Ding Shu was in shock. Our boy kicked him hard to the ground. The guard arrived, and upon seeing Yun Chai stepping on Ding Shu, asked if there was a healer. The students were shocked by Yun Chai's speed. They remembered he was only level 5. Even the blonde girl and her friend were amazed. The guard clarified that fighting in the hall was prohibited due to the risk of damaging something, and then asked the teacher why he didn't control his students. The teacher approached Jun Chai. Not only had he insulted a hero, but he also dared to assault his descendant. According to him, Yun was shameless. The teacher unsheathed his sword, and Jun Chai focused on him. Our boy activated the ring, and when the teacher attacked, his sword broke, leaving everyone astonished. Jun Chai mentioned that they should set aside the discussion about who was shameless for a moment. He pointed out to the teacher that although he claimed to be fair, he seemed to have only heard Ding Shu's version, and questioned him directly, asking if he was trying to ingratiate himself with his family. The teacher told him to stop talking nonsense, and then his gaze fixed on our boy's ring. He wondered what kind of equipment it was, since although he hadn't used all his strength, he had managed to block his attack while a powerful aura emanated from his body. Jun Chai commented that it was just a casual observation and added that he didn't think the teacher was like that. The students were shocked. They couldn't believe that Jun Chai had blocked the teacher's attack. The teacher committed to thoroughly investigating the cause of the conflict. Internally, he questioned where Yun had obtained that equipment and if he had any backing. The ring that Yun had was the Chimera Bone, with a durability damaged by 37%. Although it was of epic quality, it was only equipment for a level 21 lord, so using it against a level 35 teacher was too much. In asked to be expelled from the classroom as punishment along with Zoe, Chao stood up and followed our boy with a confused look. The students couldn't believe that Yun had blocked the teacher's attack, and wondered if this was something a student could do. The teacher asked the students to cast a healing spell on Ding Shu while our boy and Cao left the classroom. He was sad. He couldn't believe that in the end no one survived, and that Ben had been killed long ago by that hero. His gaze fixed on Cao Jie, and he thought that if he asked him something now, he would answer without thinking. He coughed and mentioned that his knowledge of history wasn't very good. Then he asked him to recount the details of Din Kun. Chao Chi, somewhat nervous, said that although he wasn't sure if he remembered it correctly, it seemed that Din Kun had discovered the villain Jun Chai's conspiracy ahead of time. He said he prepared an ambush near the SSS-Rank dungeon to support, and thus the entire rebellion crisis was resolved. Jun Chai felt somewhat surprised. He began to remember his past life and how they had been ambushed. Cao explained that the hero Din Kun aspired to resolve the dungeon crisis from a young age and always trained hard for it. After being promoted by the king, he fought throughout the country for years, saving various places from crisis, such as the very famous Great Catastrophe of Winterfell City. Junhei looked down and reflected. The image of his past self on a mountain of corpses came to his mind with a sad expression. Yun asked about the sword held by the statue of the hero. Koi explained that it was the flowing cloud sword, and added that, according to the story, it was the sword the hero had used to execute the traitor Yun Chai. It was top-tier equipment. Yun Chai's eyes began to shine with anger, as not only had they stolen his glory and achievements, but they had even taken his sword. He then decided that he would kill Din Kun first. Outside the Din family complex, several high-level warriors were patrolling. Suddenly, one of their eyes began to shine. While looking at something not far away, he saw Yun Chai and Choi sliding through an alley. He decided to ignore it, thinking they were just passing through the area. Seeing how alert the man was, Jun Chai wondered if there was a scout with explorer skills on duty. Koji suggested they leave. He said there were too many guards, and even if they managed to sneak in when Ding Shu returned, they'd be caught. Although he wanted to go and kill that hero directly, Din Kun knew it wasn't possible. According to Koji, Din Kun spent all his time in a high-level dungeon. Unlike before, you could no longer freely enter and exit dungeons. Now, the high-level ones were guarded by the army, and a special pass was required for entry. However, he was sure that Din Kun's family must have such a pass in their house. Our protagonist asked if it was necessary for his family to keep so many guards, considering they were just one of dozens of branch families descended from Din Kun. Koji said that, after all, they were descendants of a hero and also had a dungeon on their property. Our protagonist's eyes widened upon learning they had a dungeon right at home. Koji explained that low-level dungeons had been privately bought and sold for some time, but this wasn't something people without power and influence could even dream of. Ding Shu always had guards with him, so he could hunt monsters and level up whenever he wanted. In contrast, ordinary students like them could only do so during the school's dungeon practicals, where they even had to fight over monsters. Jun Chai realized this era had changed a lot and wondered if that meant the richer and more powerful you were, the higher your level would be. Koji nodded, saying that a common person usually graduates from school between level 15 and 20, and since many no longer access dungeons afterward, they get stuck at that level. If one got a dungeon-related job, like a miner or a ranger in a national dungeon, they might reach level 30 by middle age. In contrast, the guards at Ding Shu's house could use the family dungeon to reach level 30. To level up further, you generally had to be recruited by the army, or enter an official organization like a guild or military academy through school evaluations. Only then could one enter. higher level dungeons, and reach higher levels. Our protagonist knew that if he wanted to get stronger for his revenge, that pass was the key. Koji suggested they leave, saying the level difference was too great, and no matter how skilled Jun Chai was, he couldn't handle those guards. Jun Chai knew his current strength wasn't enough to defeat the hero, let alone the Supreme King, Luo Way, who was protected by layers of security. He knew that the exploration skills learned around level 30 were usually small area skills, like eagle vision, sharp hearing, or summoning a spirit familiar. They weren't enough to watch over the entire mansion all day. Besides, this wasn't a deadly dungeon, and most of the guards were quite relaxed. He concluded that it was more than possible to get inside. Koji was nervous. Jun Chai, however, leaped up and climbed the wall, thinking that compared to the near-perfect reconnaissance in the high-level dungeons of his past life, a key part of his reincarnation story, this was child's play. Koji made it clear that even if they managed to get into a private dungeon like this, they could be killed without any consequences. Our overpowered main character grabbed Koji by the shirt and asked if he didn't want to change his life. Koi admitted that yes, but he planned to do it after joining a guild. Jun Chai asked him if he really believed that a guild would change things for him. Kaochi, great-grandson of the traitor Xiaoen. Kaochi's eyes filled with sadness. Our boy pushed him against the wall and made it clear that someone's fate only changes in the present, not by betting on a what-if scenario that he himself wasn't sure about. Yun was about to let the dungeon pass right in front of him. He decided to let him decide for himself if he wanted to continue. Chao Yu started to sweat, and our boy wondered if the descendant would make the same decision as his ancestor. Kaoju stood up, as he simply couldn't let him go to his death. Jun Chai asked him to be quiet, explaining that there were no signs of a summoning exploration ability here, so if they kept their voices down, avoided being seen, and took advantage of the right moment, they could easily get in. Yun Chi grabbed Koi, and following their plan, they managed to enter the Ding family premises. Koi's attention was fixed on a dungeon that unfolded underground. They entered the dungeon and saw two monsters, one at level 6 and the other at level 8. Our boy noticed that the level was slightly higher than in the previous dungeon, but the number of monsters wasn't that high, probably because the Dingshu family regularly killed them. Our boy said that there were only 2 small monsters and urged him to try. Koi felt scared and refused, saying he couldn't defeat them. Our boy forced him to fight. The monsters attacked, and he summoned his shield to defend himself. Still unable to believe that Yun Chai trusted he would win, Kaoju got nervous and thought he shouldn't have come. Now he wanted to go home. Jun suggested he try to counterattack, but Kaoji asked how he was supposed to find an opportunity to do so. Yun Chai assured him that he was watching and that nothing bad would happen. Chao trusted him and attacked with his shield, but another monster tried to attack from behind, and he reacted in time to dodge it. Just as Yun Chai had thought, Koi's talent was really good. The problem was that he was always shy and scared easily, which is why he only dared to defend himself. However, his subconscious judgment of spatial positioning was very accurate, which is why he always seemed to be in danger, but he didn't lose much health. Kaozi attacked the monster, but his shield broke. Yun Chai moved quickly, killing the monsters. Koj was surprised, as he had leveled up. He was now at level 7. Our boy mentioned that experience was distributed according to contribution, and that if he didn't unbalance the monsters, he wouldn't gain much experience, even if Yun Chai killed them. Yuncho wielded the crescent bone blade made from resentment condensed into a leg bone, increasing his attack power by 62 and his spiritual attack by 11. Yuncha noticed that Koi's movements were agile, and asked him how he distributed his attribute points. Koyi said that, except for spirit, he distributed them evenly. Our boy remembered that shield bearers usually didn't add points to agility. Q explained that without that, it was hard to find a group in school. He clarified that no one wanted to wait for a slow shield bearer, as by the time he arrived, the others would have already taken all the monsters. Yuncha sighed and explained that he needed to have a long-term perspective. He clarified that advanced class promotions after level 60 required certain attributes. He gave the example of the Fortress Bastion class, which required 60 in endurance and 90 in defense, concluding that he couldn't just add points randomly. Kauge said that the maximum level a normal person could achieve in their life was around level 40, and wondered how he could think about level 60, since that was S-rank. Our boy put a hand on his shoulder and, smiling, told him that from that moment on, he could start thinking about S-rank or even beyond S-rank. That said, he also needed to start planning his own class advancement. He thought that his support class had only revived thanks to the hidden skill Mirror World, and that if nothing unexpected happened, he would probably change to another class. He was shocked to notice something incredible. His Mirror World skill could improve. In the private dungeon of the Ding family, Yunche fought against monsters with astonishing speed. His Odruko skill enhanced his attacks, but he ended up hitting a level 17 greed zombie demon. The monster, still alive, showed the power of Hoj Truco, but also its limits in long fights. Yun's mana and endurance were low. The monster died, showing that its body couldn't withstand long battles. The fight brought great rewards. Jun Chai leveled up twice, reaching level 17, and his health, mana, and attribute points increased rapidly. He also obtained 2 shadow creatures, elite zombie souls that granted his SSS-Rank skill, Mirror World, 2,000 experience points, confirming that he could level up. After the battle, Jun Chai collected items, pleased with the levels and the experience from Mirror World. Suddenly, feeling danger, he moved higher, and saw the Ding family guards patrolling more frequently below Xiaoyi. Level 80 with new gear. Nervous, he suggested stopping. He saw fewer monsters and the high guard alert, making it very risky, wondering if they had been discovered. Jun Chai agreed that fighting now would be complicated, requiring constant vigilance from the guards and careful use of the tricked blade. With his current power and increased security, the risk was too high. Jun Chai looked at a new skill book, a brick spell that created mana bricks. By investing in Mirror World, it became a void technique, making small objects intangible. He noticed that not all invested skills were for fighting. Some had subtle uses outside of combat. Yun reviewed his Mirror World skill. He needed 30% more experience to level up. Standing on the cliff, he thought about the power his investment gave him. Even at his initial level, he felt more determined, imagining how much stronger he would be as he leveled up. With bright eyes, Jun Chai devised a new plan. This dungeon provided a unique experience of Mirror World due to its monsters. He believed that defeating the boss could elevate the skill to level 2. A reward too good to ignore. Despite the risk from the guards, they moved silently through the cave, hiding behind the rocks. While the guards used detection skills more often, making his position dangerous, Yun looked cautiously ahead and saw his target. A massive and shadowy figure on a throne, bound by thick, glowing purple chains at the top of the stairs. Many guards protected her. This was the dungeon boss. From his hiding spot, Cao was surprised to see such a dungeon boss. Jun Chai was less surprised, noting that the boss of his school was also guarded, suggesting that it is common for strong groups. Jun Chai examined the scene, observing the relaxed guards on the stairs. He noticed the glowing purple chains binding the boss, realizing they were strong restraints. He silently analyzed the situation. With so many guards, attacking the boss directly would be suicidal and impossible to win, drawing everyone's attention. Jun Chai knew he couldn't defeat the boss with all the guards there, but he saw an opportunity. One guard moved away alone, deciding to eliminate them one by one. Covering his face, he used the trick blade with a 150% attack boost and ambushed the guard. The ambush went perfectly. The guard was incapacitated instantly and fell. As Cao Yi watched, Yun stood over him with a dark presence, demanding that he speak and provide information. Terrified, the guard begged for his life, offering any information, admitting that the Ding family didn't pay him enough to die for them. Yun saw this as his chance to ask about his main goal, infiltrating the complex. When asking about the hero dungeon pass, the guard was surprised. The guard quickly mentioned that the old master had many in his study and that they were not rare. Confused, he thought Yun was a hero, a fanatical grandfather. Scared by Jun Chai's silence, the guards swore it was true, saying they saw the old master take passes often. They warned that the passes were temporary samples. Without an infiltrator, they would be caught. Jun Chai was not worried. He grabbed the guard by the neck, telling him not to worry. With a cold look, he ordered the guard to empty his inventory, revealing his plan to rob him and probably assume his identity. In the Ding family's complex, Yun continued interrogating the guard, holding him by the shirt. Yun was disappointed by a single mediocre skill book. The guard, frightened, swore that was all, explaining that the Ding family kept the valuable dungeon rewards in their inner residence, leaving the outer guards with only the works. Junk learned Solar Baptism, a passive skill that provides temporary defense. After healing, he used Mirror World to change the Moonlight Blessing, a powerful offensive skill that grants temporary attack boosts. After healing, he noticed that this skill, like the dungeon passes, was in the inner residence. The guard indicated the luxurious inner residence of the Dings, explaining that outer guards like him could not enter without a direct summons. He said the security was extreme. Except for Dingshu, everyone inside was above level 50 with superior equipment, making the outer guards unnecessary. Yunxi approached the guard and asked if the pass was in the residence. The guard, frightened, confirmed it, adding that the powerful head of the family, a level 42, was also there. An enemy Yun could defeat detailed the family's strength. The current family head and the second head, both level 42. The third head was level 52, and the old master was level 57. He warned that if the two strongest members returned, their mission would be impossible. After getting the information, Yun Chai knocked the guard unconscious, had Xiao Yui wear the guard's armor as a disguise, and told him to wait for his signal. Since the family head was secure inside, Yun Chai planned to lure him out instead of facing him directly. Down in the dungeon, Yun observed the boss. He understood that the Ding family used high-level chains to keep it alive, creating a private cultivation ground. He saw that the system's security, based on guarded chains, was exploitable. It was a major flaw. The guards believed their method was secure because no one would dare open the chains, but they didn't know that Jun Chai, thanks to knowledge from his reincarnation, knew how to unlock them. He stealthily approached a guard and undid the lock with ease. The chains fell, and the enraged boss broke free, going on a rampage. The guards panicked as the giant monster ran wild. This chaos was exactly what our overpowered main character, Jun Chai, needed to draw the family out of the inner residence, using the ideal method to achieve his goal. The plan worked perfectly. Alarms blared as the level 42 family head rushed from the now unprotected inner residence, ordering immediate reinforcement of the dungeon. As he and his guards scrambled to handle the crisis, Yun took advantage of the distraction to grab the powerful level 60 combat chains that had bound the boss. Holding the pulsating, high-level equipment, Jun Chai knew his plan had worked. With the family head and the elite guards occupied, he and Xiao Yui could easily enter the inner residence. As Yun's revenge plan cleared the way, new people arrived at the entrance of the Ding family home. The servants greeted the second master, the level 42 Ding Hao, and his son, Ding Shu, who arrived in a luxurious car. Ding Hao downplayed Ding Shu's recent defeat to Jun Chai as a simple mistake. Ding Shu returned the greeting. His father wasn't the reason for his presence. Ding Hao opened the car door for Miss Yunga. Two young women got out, one with long blonde hair and her dark-haired friend, who was likely Yunsha. The mustached head of the family, returning from the mess in the dungeon, was waiting at the top of the stairs, smiling. Suddenly, his smile vanished, replaced by confusion and then rage. He roughly shoved a servant who was bowing in his path, telling him not to block his way. As the servant lay on the floor, the angry family head stormed towards Ding Hao, Ding Shu, and their two guests, clearly annoyed. From the nearby woods, Xiao Yui, dressed as a guard, observed the scene unfolding at the house. Jun Chai suddenly appeared behind him, startling the boy. Yui said he was worried, pointing out that with the Ding family back, it wasn't a good time to sneak into the house. Yun calmly asked why he was worried, and a surprised Xiao Yui asked how he got there so fast. Jun Chai explained that the creature he had released was a dungeon lord. Even a level 31 was difficult to capture alive, which meant it would keep the Ding family's main fighters busy for a long time. He said they wouldn't defeat the boss anytime soon, making it the ideal opportunity for them. With that settled, he asked Cao Yi what he saw. Cao Yi sadly looked at the house. He said that the servant the family head threw out was his younger uncle, Cao Li, a level 17 man. Yun Chai listened as Cao Yi narrated a dark, shared past. He said that by the time the elder Yun was revealed, his family was already dead. Cao Yi added that, in a way, this saved them from the years of shame and pain that followed for the children of traitors like his family. Hearing about the pain that the family of Yun's old friend suffered because of lies about their past, Yun Chai's face showed sadness and determination. As they watched from the trees, Cao Yi continued his family's tragic story. He explained that after being branded as traitors, the Cao family suffered constant cruelty from the empire. Their homes were destroyed and their lives ruined, made worse by secret orders from the so-called hero, Ding Kun. The survivors of the Cao family were harassed and injured, beaten and broken endlessly. With no other option to survive, the remaining members of the Cao family had to work for the very people who ruined them. The Cao family now leads a poor life, always watching their masters' faces, bowing and begging for scraps. Cao Yi admitted with shame that they are sometimes paraded around as proof of the Ding family's power and kindness for forgiving the children of a traitor. He said that his father's generation tried to fight back and change their destiny by speaking out against the injustice, but their efforts failed. The stress broke his father, who went mad, while his uncle, Cao Li, became completely obedient, behaving like a dog for the Ding family. Burdened by this sad history, Cao Yi began to doubt his actions, wondering if it was right to follow Yun Chai into such a dangerous place. His doubt was interrupted when Yun Chai turned and told him firmly that he had to go to the inner residence. Fearfully, he tried to stop him, reminding him that Ding Shu's father, a fully equipped level 42 fighter, was inside. He warned Yun Chai that if he were discovered, he would die. But Yun Chai, a classic overpowered main character, was not afraid of the danger. He explained his belief that in this era where powerful people control who can use power and dungeons, one cannot hope to change their life without taking risks. He looked at Cao Yi and added that some things are never achieved if you worry and wait too long. Finally, Yun Chai gave him a clear choice. He told Cao Yi that he could help him change his destiny, but Cao Yi had to decide to act first. Yun Chai clarified his plans. He would fight, but he wouldn't force Cao Yi to follow him. Despite Yun Chai's firm will, Cao Yi was still scared and doubtful. He said the Ding family was an immense power that dominated the world. He asked how the two of them could possibly stand against such a great force. Yun Chai turned, looking towards the distant inner residence as he began to move forward. He told the astonished Cao Yi that his goal was bigger than just taking down one family. The true enemy he planned to face was the entire empire. This revenge plot is the core of this action manhwa. Meanwhile, in the inner residence, Ding Hao was resting on a sofa, attended by a maid. He was wondering how the dungeon lord had broken free from its chains. Seeing him, the blonde girl with Ding Shu politely asked her uncle if it was a bad time, offering to return another day due to the emergency. Ding Hao quickly calmed her worries, saying that his older brother, the head of the family, could handle it. He promised her that a simple dungeon problem was far less important than her visit. He continued smiling, explaining that when his powerful father, the old master, and his third brother heard she was coming, they had already started heading back to the house to welcome her. He also said they had already contacted the hero grandfather, who was very excited to meet her, making it clear that handling the situation would be very easy. From a hidden spot on a balcony, Jun Chai overheard everything. His attention sharpened upon hearing about the hero grandfather. Knowing they were referring to the so-called hero, Din Kun, his mind raced, connecting this new information with what he had learned from the captured guard, a key moment in this manhwa recap. To enter the hero's dungeon, one needed both a pass and someone to accompany them. He looked at the guests, seeing how reverently they treated Yun Sha, and realized her status must be very high. Then, a key detail clicked in his mind. Her name was Yun Sha. She shared the same last name as his current self. He wondered if this was just a coincidence, a hint about his reincarnation. For now, he pushed the thought aside, fixing his gaze and deciding to focus on getting the dungeon pass immediately. As he watched, Yun Sha stood in silence, her face unreadable, a figure of mystery and importance. With the main fighters of the Ding family occupied, Yun Chai took the chance to sneak into the inner residence. He moved silently through the luxurious hallways, gliding past two chatting maids and using the shadows to conceal himself. He passed through the decorated halls, delving deeper into the mansion toward his goal. Meanwhile, outside the dungeon, the problem was already solved. The head of the family, Ding Yi, level 42, and his forces stood before the defeated dungeon lord. Ding Yi observed the situation, thinking the creature had been released on purpose. However, he was worried because they couldn't find the person responsible. He thought that taking such a huge risk couldn't be just for a good piece of equipment like the chains. Determined to protect his home, he ordered the guards to surround the residence. His main concern was the important guest. He couldn't allow anything to frighten the young lady. Inside the study, Yun Chai began his search. He went to the desk the guard had mentioned, but was annoyed to find the drawers empty. Remembering his new non-combat skill, he used the brick reverse phase spell. This allowed his hand to pass through the wood of the desk, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside, he found a drawer filled with books and journals. He pulled out the items, his eyes first locking onto what looked like a journal. Moving it aside, he found the real treasure, a collection of high-quality and stylish skill books. One was for a powerful support ability called Slow Aura, which could slow down all enemies in a wide area. Our overpowered main character had found the family's secret stash. The entrance to the Ding family's inner residence was now swarming with guards hidden in the nearby forest. Cao He watched in terror, wondering why all the guards were there and fearing they had been discovered, a classic tense moment in this action manhwa. His panic increased as more guards arrived, and he realized that the situation was very risky. He was worried that if Yun Chai didn't come out soon, he would be caught. The fear of being caught brought painful memories of his father going mad and the constant suffering of his family. His first thought was to flee, to sneak away and save himself. As another guard approached, he froze, not knowing what to do. In that crucial moment, he remembered Yun Chai's words. He could receive help to change, but first, he had to make the decision for himself. Having made a decision, Kaoji let out a loud shout, intentionally drawing the guards' attention. Then he emerged from his hiding place and began to run, leading them away from the mansion. He had decided he would be a distraction for Yun to be found. From the mansion, Yun saw Xiaoyi's brave act. With the guards distracted, he broke a window and jumped. He felt proud to see his friend finally overcome his fear and choose to fight against his fate. To help Qiao Yui escape, Yun Qi created a bigger distraction. He fell among the guards, mocking them, saying he stole the chains and skill books, challenging them to recover them. Angry, the guards left their posts and followed him. As he ran, Yunsha used the slowing aura ability he had stolen, but thanks to Mirror World, the ability was reversed, becoming an acceleration aura, speeding him and any close friends up. The head of the family, Ding Yi, saw them running, but noticed something strange. Instead of fleeing the house, they were heading back toward the dungeon. Seeing the danger, he ordered 2 squads to stop chasing and return to protect the lord of the dungeon. Kaioi, running alongside Yunchi, was very confused. He asked why Yunchi was taking everyone back to danger. Yunchi explained his plan. He knew that with so many distracted guards chasing them, the remaining forces would have already defeated the fierce lord of the dungeon. To control the powerful chief, they would have had a great fight. This meant that the Lord's health was now at its lowest, making him weak. Yun checked the status of his final ability. Mirror World, seeing how close it was to strengthening, with eyes shining purple, he knew what to do. Killing the weakened Lord of the Dungeon would give him the final boost he needed to strengthen his most powerful ability. A tense silence filled the luxurious hall of the Ding family. The blonde girl, while elegantly sipping her tea, told Ding Hao, her host, that she could hear the noise outside. Confidently smiling, Ding Hao, the second patriarch, dismissed it as a thief, assuring his guest, his brother Ding Yi, that he would handle it without a problem, but it was not easy. In the dungeon, the great patriarch Ding Wei was trying to regain control in fury, shouting at a guard for his slowness, and ordering him to go after the out-of-control lord. Seeing Yun Chai pass by quickly, Ding Yi ordered his fastest units, his rogues and archers, to leave the chief and pursue the intruder at all costs. Their efforts failed. Yun Chai was moving too fast, leaving them behind. He knew his advantage. He had put half of his attribute points into agility, combining his reverse acceleration skills. It was so fast that only cunning rogues or specialized archers of level 30 could keep up. It reached the main chamber without any issues where the skeletal lord was surrounded. The beast was injured and immobilized with the guards trying to cast a sealing spell. Yun Chai saw that his plan worked well. The boss was at his weakest point. With a surge of purple energy, he prepared to deliver a final blow and finish off the weakened dungeon lord. As Yun Chai approached, the guards around the lord saw him. They shouted in alarm and rushed to block his path. Before they could defend themselves properly, Yun unleashed chaotic thorns. Purple vines erupted from the ground, whipping at them. The guards were confused. They had never seen this ability before. The thorns sought to inflict a status ailment. Humans usually resist these effects, but Yun's ability was powerful, and several guards could not withstand it. The terrifying result: the affected guards were left confused. A wizard cast a powerful spell on a fellow guard, plunging their ranks into chaos. The other guards were astonished, stunned by the success of the ability. With the enemies fighting among themselves, Yun seized the opportunity. He easily slipped between the disorganized guards. His path was clear towards the low-health lord, ready to be captured. The guards' defense crumbled as Yun advanced. They panicked, shouting why. Their shields and crowd control failed, hitting their allies. Jun Chai noted their poor coordination, seeing them as a group inexperienced in team battles. He reflected that prolonged peace had weakened them. Leading to their downfall, a guard captain tried to rally his men, insisting that if they could immobilize the intruder, it would be over for him. At that moment, Patriarch Ding Yi arrived and ordered his men to restrain Yun Chai. The level 42 warrior with flaming gear said he would handle the intruder himself. With his flaming weapon, he leaped, preparing a devastating attack against Yun Chai. Yun observed the Patriarch's approach. Preparing with a sound of disdain, he decided to face the attack head-on. He drew the level 60 combat chains he had stolen. Although his level was low to fully equip them, he knew their great durability remained. As Ding Yi's flaming attack descended, Yun Chai used the chains as an improvised shield, successfully blocking the full force of the explosion. Yun skillfully turned Ding Yi's attack to his advantage. Instead of just blocking the explosion, he used its impact to propel himself backward like a cannonball, breaking the magical seal. The guards tried to surround their chief. He landed right in front of the weakened dungeon lord. With one last taunt, he shamelessly thanked the furious patriarch for the trip. Before the guards could react, Yun announced that he would steal the Supreme Lord's experience. He launched a powerful final blow, striking the weakened beast and ending its life. The reward was immediate and enormous. Yun leveled up 3 times, reaching level 20 and gaining 9 attribute points. Most importantly, the experience from the Dungeon Lord maximized his hidden skill, Mirror World. A system notification confirmed that the skill had improved. Reaching the long-awaited level 2, filled with rage after losing his prey, the first patriarch, Ding Yi, shouted furiously and charged at Yun with his blazing axe. Following his lead, the guards advanced, determined to capture the intrepid intruder, who remained calm before the corpse of the Dungeon Lord. Yun was unafraid. He thought of his rewards, the power that his supreme ability gained upon reaching level 2. When Ding Yi's attack nearly connected, it pierced through a bright image of Yun, who then disappeared. The guards stopped, confused by his sudden disappearance. Yun Chai found himself in a new place. The world was now a silent and crystalline turquoise version of the dungeon. He activated a new ability from his hidden skill, Mirror World. In this strange dimension, he saw ghostly and transparent versions of Dingy and other guards unaware of his presence. A timer showed that his journey through the mirror would last almost 30 minutes. He realized with excitement that he could now enter the world within the mirror. Inside the strange turquoise world, Yun Chai began to use his new power. He observed that everything was an exact reflection of the real world, inverted from left to right. At first, he believed the ghostly figures of the guards were illusions, as his hand passed through one of them. but upon touching the crystalline ground, he noticed it was solid. Seeing that this place was more than a trick, his exploration led him to an astonishing discovery. He picked up a solid piece of crystal from the ground, and a message indicated that he had a shard of mirror that, most importantly, could be taken from this world to the real one. This was crucial for Jun Chai. He understood that with his mirror world ability, now at level 2, he could bring real objects from that world to his own. Curious about the changes, after enhancing his ability, he checked the system screen. He saw a different list of abilities that included many powerful inverted skills like invisibility and force field cage, but most were marked as inactive, which confused him. A message explained that these skills were for unlearned base skills. Then he understood the true power of his new ability. The list showed the inverted forms of all the skills he could learn. He now knew that to use these powerful skills, he first needed to find and learn their normal versions. The inversion of skills he used at level 1 was just a basic part of the true power of his ability. While reviewing the exciting list of future powers, he realized that this changed everything. At this moment, he had the ability to select powerful skills and chart his class trajectory, aware of which inverted forms he would acquire. As Yoon pondered the potential of his ability, he sensed something behind him. Turning, he saw a turquoise human figure floating in the crystalline air. He wondered if it was a soul like his before coming back to life. The idea intrigued him, and he asked if there were other souls in this strange world as well. Without warning, the tranquil soul glowed with green energy, transforming into an undead creature in the shape of a skeleton that screamed and lunged at him. Startled, Jun Chai drew his sword and prepared to fight. He faced the creature's attack and with a single blow, shattered the undead being, noticing it didn't seem very strong. Just as he finished off the creature, a message appeared that caught his attention. The system offered him a contract with the undead. It explained that he could make a deal with the defeated soul, allowing it to leave the mirror world and fight for him in the real world. The contract stated that the soul's level would be the same as his, and he could have 20 contracts. This unexpected event made Jun Chai think about what this new power could do. Our overpowered main character reflected on his new power. He understood that by defeating an undead creature in the mirror world, he could make a pact with its soul and bring it into reality. As a strong fighter who held the materialized mirror fragment, he knew his ability wasn't just for things like stones. The upgrade to level 2 of the mirror world was a real game-changer in this action manhwa, allowing him to bring not just objects, but also an army of the undead from the mirror world into the real world. Looking at the vast crystalline landscape full of possibilities, the idea seemed interesting. Back in the real world, everything was in chaos. With their lord defeated, the private dungeon vanished, leaving an army of guards stunned and confused. A great moment for this manhwa recap. They didn't know where the intruder went. A frantic captain asked how he disappeared, wondering if it was the skill of an advanced rogue. A rogue expert said no, explaining that their stealth had limits and couldn't make someone vanish so perfectly. The lack of answers infuriated another captain, who grabbed the rogue, demanding to know how the intruder escaped with so many people present. The first patriarch, Ding Yi, was even more furious. Having lost his valuable private dungeon, he unleashed his anger on one of his men, grabbing his face and shouting that if they didn't find the culprit, they would have to compensate him for the loss. Meanwhile, Jun Chai's time in the mirror world was running out. As the timer for his mirror walk counted down, he wondered where he would reappear. Would he return to his starting point, or were there other rules for exiting the mirror world? This reincarnation story keeps getting more complex. He got his answer shortly after, when he reappeared in the real world, in the exact same spot where he had vanished. The enraged Ding Yi saw him and, without a second thought, ordered his men to capture him. Faced with the attack from the Ding family's fighters, Jun Chai remained calm, raised a hand with a swirling green light shining, and told them not to be so hasty. He commented that after being ganged up on for so long, it was time for his revenge. With that, he used the power he had just obtained from the mirror world. A wave of creepy, skeletal warriors emerged, forming a terrifying army of the undead that charged towards the shocked guards. The terrified guards slowed their attacks as they wondered what these ghostly figures were. They wondered if they were real ghosts. Patriarch Ding Yi tried to quell the growing fear. He shouted at his men not to panic, saying that the creatures were just undead monsters he had seen many times before. A guard fought a skeletal warrior, ready for a tough fight. However, he was surprised to see a health bar above the creature. It was a level 20 undead skeleton warrior, the same level as Jun Chai. Despite this, the fear was palpable. Ding Yi's face twisted in anger at his men's continued hesitation to make them fight. He promised a bonus to everyone if they attacked and captured the intruder. The idea of a reward made them brave once again. But when the guards looked from the army of the undead to Yun, they saw that he was no longer confused. They looked around wondering where he could have gone, using their newly summoned undead as a distraction. Yun observed the fight from a safe distance. He judged that his current army was too weak to be effective. He knew that if he found and negotiated with stronger souls, The disorganized guards would be no match. However, he was limited by what he could find. He had already made deals with the 20 strongest souls available in the small area he had explored within the mirror world. Additionally, he discovered that his exploration of the mirror world was not infinite. He had hit a wall that kept him 200 meters from where he entered. This made him realize that to find better undead, he would need to enter the mirror world from other locations in the future. His plans were interrupted when he saw his friend Chai, who was acting as a distraction, found hiding in the forest. A guard mocked the disguised boy, commenting on the reward for capturing him. Without hesitation, Jun Chai jumped from the shadows, swiftly and accurately taking down the guards who threatened his friend. With the path clear, he grabbed the stunned Xiao Yi and told him they were leaving. Seeing the chaos caused by his army of undead, which kept the guards occupied, Jun Chai decided that his task was complete. It was time to return, to distance himself from danger, and thoroughly check everything he had obtained in his bold incursion. As Jun Chai and Choyui fled, the guards of the Ding family fought against the army of the undead. They attacked fiercely at the skeletons, breaking their bones. A leader of the guards noticed that the creatures were not strong, but his relief was short-lived. To his horror, a defeated skeleton reformed instantly without any damage. They continued to fight, but the skeletons revived ceaselessly. Just when the morale of the guards began to wane, Dinge, the strong level 52 third chief of the Ding family, appeared smoking relaxed. He saw that the skeletons were being summoned, and reviving them consumed the summoner's magic. With a confident smile, he thought they just had to kill them until they exhausted their master's energy. Shortly after the attack, the old master, the chief of the family with a long white beard, returned. He immediately asked if the important guest, Snora Junsha, had already left. His son Ding Hao bowed, apologizing for not being able to keep her. He explained that the intruder was very bold, causing a commotion by shouting and breaking a window, frightening their guest. The old master, the formidable level 57 Ding Dan, son of the hero Ding Kun, was furious. He yelled at his son for the total security failure, enraged that an intruder entered and escaped without being identified. Ding Hao bowed his head in shame, taking all the blame. Ding Hao brought good news. Despite the chaos, Lady Yunsha agreed to go to the hero's dungeon, which meant that the matter of her grandfather, the hero Din Kun, was not lost. This did not calm the furious patriarch. Ding Dan swore that they would kill the guilty without mercy. Then he ordered his son to quickly check what else had been stolen. Safe from the chaos, Junhei reviewed his gains. He observed the temporary dungeon access permit he had stolen under the name Koji. He had the pass, his main objective, but still required an escort for the hero's dungeon. He decided not to rush this matter. He evaluated his other gains from the Ding House raid. It was very profitable, raising his level to 20. His Chimera Bone Ring almost broke while blocking an attack, but he had stolen more than 10 valuable skill books. He saw that one of the books contained singing skills, all support skills. He learned the battle song that increased critical hit rates and damage, but lowered defense. He immediately considered its reverse form, the shield song that would do the opposite. He excitedly realized that by learning and reversing these support skills, he could greatly increase his stats. With these boosts and a new passive skill that increased his strength, he knew he could defeat any rival of the same level with pure stats. Besides the skill books, the Dungeon Lord dropped a rare level 30 item, the Armor of the Corrupted Knight, which would be useful later. Most importantly, beyond levels, skills, and equipment, he raised his hidden skill Mirror World to level 2. Considering his new skills, Yunsha recognized that his necromantic summons greatly increased his combat power, but he knew it wasn't enough. Remembering the statue of the hero Ding Kun, he judged that his enemy was at least an S-rank berserker. To have a chance to kill him, Junhei thought he would need to reach level 50 or higher, and even more importantly, find and hire an S-rank necrotic spirit. Later, outside the Ding complex, a trembling Koi nervously asked Jun Chai if they would not be followed. Yun Cheche calmly replied that they had lost their pursuers and were safe, as they did not see their faces. Still, Cao Yi was restless, and Yun Che noticed how hard the experience must have been for him. Seeing that his undead army was very weak, Yun Che decided on his next step. He asked Cao Ju if there was any nearby dungeon where someone powerful had died. Cao Yi looked confused, so Yun Che explained that he needed a high-level dungeon to level up faster. Adding the powerful person was for something he would discover later. After a moment, Chao Yu confirmed that there was such a place. However, he hesitated. Worried, he revealed that it was the school's private dungeon and that they could not enter. The information made Yun stop, thinking about a controlled and well-guarded dungeon. He did not hesitate. He decided that if the normal entrance was impossible, he would use special methods to achieve it. As part of those methods to enter the school's private dungeon, Jun Chai met with his teacher. He gave the teacher a rare purple skill book for his stolen rogue class from the Ding family. The bribe worked. The teacher, thinking that Yun had a strong backing, became more helpful. He admitted that access to the dungeon was generally fixed and could not be changed easily. However, he explained a loophole. The dungeon opened for students who graduated. Although Yoon was qualified, a teacher could recommend an outstanding student. Convinced of Yoon's exceptional potential, he promised to secure him a spot. The plan was successful. Yoon joined the students entering the school's brave dungeon. Other students were either determined or flattering. One seriously commented that it might be their last chance to level up, while another thanked the hero. As Jun Chai crossed the bright portal, he felt a strange unease, sensing that something was off about this dungeon. The professor enthusiastically explained that it was where the hero had fought, and that traces of his power might remain nearby. Cao Hu listened seriously, horrified, realizing that the brave dungeon was where, according to the Empire's false history, the hero Din Kun had killed his great-grandfather, the traitor Chao En. Knowing the truth, Cao Qi hesitated. He internally struggled with whether he should tell Yoon what he knew about the real history. As the students gathered at the entrance, the professor gave a final warning. It was a high-level dungeon, and they needed to be careful inside. He then pointed to a red-haired student in armor, Little Seda, asking him to look after Jun Chai and Qi. Little C, annoyed, complained that he couldn't focus on leveling up if he had to babysit others. Another student pushed him, telling him to stop complaining because the dungeon was already open. Complaining about why younger students were allowed in, Little Z entered condescendingly with the others. He ordered Yun Chai and Kuyu to stay back and not cause trouble, threatening to leave them behind if they became a burden. As they entered the vast purple interior, Yoon assessed his surroundings. It was a level 2040 dungeon, but his instincts from his past life told him that something was wrong. A sense of unease washed over him, as he felt a danger that didn't match the difficulty of the dungeon. As the students ventured deeper into the radiant purple dungeon, Yoon Cha saw Yoon Yin and her blonde friend Yoon Sha inside. She wondered how they were allowed to be there as younger students. Little C, assigned to watch over Jun Chai, also saw the girls and pointed them out to another armored student. This student dreamed of accompanying the attractive girls. His fantasy was interrupted by a taller, serious student in a helmet who hit him, telling him to stop dreaming. This student said that Yoon Yin and Yoon Sha were stronger, both above level 30. He mocked that they should ask the girls for help and that the dreamer wasn't good enough for them. Embarrassed, the student murmured that he was just talking. While the older students conversed, the dreamer watched Jun Sha and Jun Yin. To his surprise and that of his friend, the two high-level youths ignored them and went straight to Yun Chai and Zhao Ju. Yun saw them approaching, confused. He recognized Yung Sha as the important guest from the Ding house. Her direct approach made him suspicious. He wondered if she knew the original owner of his body or if she was confronting him for Ding Shu, whom he had publicly humiliated. Yung Sha's approach was direct and friendly. Smiling confidently, she told Yun Chai that she saw him in the memorial hall and praised his combat skills, adding that his voice was unique. Jun Chai doubted her intentions, thinking she was just making small talk. But Yun Sha's eyes glowed golden as she drew closer, revealing she recognized his voice from the sound of shattering glass when he escaped the Ding family residence. This left Yun Chai stunned. He realized, alarmed that this powerful girl had identified him as the intruder. With just 2 sentences, he shouted. Having made her point, Yun Sha's clothes changed into a combat outfit similar to a white mage's. Yun Yin did the same, donning a dark green energy outfit. Yun Sha then told a surprised Yun Chai that they would explore the dungeon first and then walked away with her friend. As they walked away, Yun Chai reflected on the encounter. He understood that she had identified him as the intruder, but chose not to expose him publicly, conveying the message subtly. This made him wonder if it was a warning. He considered the dangerous possibility that Ding Shu would also recognize his voice from their previous fight. However, Yun Chai decided not to worry for now. He was confident that as long as the Ding family didn't act immediately, his rapid leveling speed would soon make him strong enough to handle any threat they posed. Seeing her act friendly, he decided to warn them in return. He called out, advising them to be careful, as his instincts told him that the dungeon felt very strange. Yun Chai stopped and nodded, commenting to her friend that the place felt weird. She thought that with her high level, the dungeon shouldn't seem so unsettling. With a final knowing smile towards Yun Chai, she thanked him for the warning before she and Yun Yin continued on. The brief, friendly chat between Yun Chai and the high-level girls did not go unnoticed. The older students watched in disbelief, murmuring about why the distant Yun Chai was so friendly with him. Filled with jealousy, they surrounded Yun Chai, asking about his relationship with her and demanding an introduction. Uninterested, Yun Chai cut their questions short, saying that he and Cao Ju would leave the group to explore alone. The older students were surprised by his confidence, warning him that as younger students, the level 20 monsters would surely kill them. To everyone's surprise, their supervisor, Little Z, let them go. He said that if Yun Chai was close to someone as strong as Yun Yin, his own level must be high as well. When the others protested, reminding him of their teacher's orders, Little Z's true motive was revealed in his thoughts. He was firmly focused on the real reason they were there, to find precious crystals. He didn't want to share the loot, so letting them go was ideal. He finalized his decision by coldly telling the group to ignore them, arguing that they had distress signal guns if they needed them. As Jun Chai and Kaoju walked away, he watched them with anger and jealousy. He couldn't understand why an ordinary guy had caught Jun Chai's attention. His envy transformed into dark malice. He concluded that if Jun Chai was so arrogant, he deserved to die. Sometime after Jun Chai and the others entered the dungeon, an enraged Ding Shu arrived at the entrance. A male and female staff member asked him what he was doing. Filled with rage, Ding Shu grabbed the man's shirt, asking if a team had already entered. The employee demanded to know what he was planning. This confrontation came right after a frustrating meeting Ding Shu had. When he tried to tell them that Yun Chai and Xiao were the intruders who had raided their home, his father, Ding Haowu, dismissed him. He coldly told him not to blame them for his public humiliation, as he didn't have time for such petty matters. Ding Shu firmly insisted that he recognized their voices from the assault. Ding Haowu was doubtful, pointing out that the intruders were too skilled to be mere students, easily escaping from many guards. Ding Haowu said that unless Ding Shu could prove his strength surpassed that of the guards, he couldn't support his claim. The head of the Din family, Din Dan, coldly told him to leave them to their important matters. Rejected by his family, Ding Shu had no choice but to act on his own. Back at the dungeon entrance, he once again met the staff member, declaring with a crazed determination that since Yun Chai and Xiao were inside, he had to follow them. Inside the dungeon, Yun Chai was fighting a level 20 greed demon crystal giant. The creature, made of sharp blue crystals, attacked fiercely. As our overpowered main character dodged its blows, a stronger enemy appeared. A level 30 greed demon crystal eye, which launched a purple energy beam towards him. Seeing the new monster's power, Yun Chai braced for impact. From a distance, a frightened Xiao shouted, "Yun Chai." A group of golden shields with angel wings surrounded Yun Chai, protecting him from the attack. The surrounding shield ability gave him a shield with 500 durability and 700 defense for 3 minutes. Xiao didn't stop there. He used motivational shout, which enveloped Yun Chai in an aura that boosted his power. This gave Yun Chai the inspiration status, increasing his attack, power, and speed by 5%. Xiao was quickly becoming a great support player in this action manhwa. With Xiao's help, Yun Chai launched powerful attacks against the crystal monster, using his sword trick ability, which gave him a 70% increase in attack power. He shattered the strong, level 30 monster's eye with one powerful final blow. Victory brought swift results. Yun Chai leveled up to 21 and gained 3 new attribute points. Xiao was overjoyed, shouting in surprise as he leveled up to 11 and gained 3 attribute points. Yun Chai explained to his friend that the surrounding shield and motivational shout skills came from the books they stole from the Ding family as part of his revenge. He said they were useful skills that Xiao was able to learn. As he looked at the remains of the defeated monster, Yun Chai thought about how much his team had improved. He knew the monsters here were high level, but Xiao's new skills made the fights easier as they ventured deeper into the dungeon. This manhwa recap is getting intense. Yun Chai remembered something his master said about the dungeon's crystal caves. He mentioned a rare monster here called the Obsidian Beast. He said that killing it gave a chance to get a rare support skill book for gravitational attraction. This was a great opportunity for Yun Chai, as he had seen the inverse form of the skill, the force field zone, in his mirror world skill list, and he knew it was key to his future plans after his reincarnation. Hunting the beast wasn't his only goal. He surveyed the eerie landscape, knowing that many powerful adventurers had also died in this dungeon. He thought their souls might linger where they fell, giving him the chance to find and recruit powerful undead spirits for his army. He hoped to find some of these souls in the area. Suddenly he felt danger and his eyes opened wide in alarm. In the canyon below, a huge creature made of dark rock and glowing purple appeared. It was not alone. A group of elite obsidian beasts marched together through the Crystal Pillar Canyon. From a high cliff, Yun Chai and Kao observed the strange scene. Yun Chai noticed that the elite beasts were advancing in a large group and had covered at least 1 kilometer, much farther than usual. This organized and unusual behavior led him to a serious conclusion as he murmured the words, "Wandering type, huh?" He recognized the signs of a much larger and smarter threat. The way the obsidian beasts acted reminded him of Yuno, and he explained what a wandering monster is. They are rare creatures with a fixed appearance location that roam freely across a dungeon map. They are stronger than normal monsters of the same level, and can easily defeat unsuspecting adventurers. At first, before people grew stronger and learned to control dungeons, encountering a wandering type usually meant a tough fight for survival. The creatures were dangerous because they were not confined to the dungeon. They could wander outside and threaten human cities, causing disasters and deaths. However, Yun Chai knew that this great risk brought a great reward. The experience and items left by wandering monsters were better than those of any normal creature, making them a high-risk, high-reward target for any brave adventurer who faced them. Aware of the threat from the obsidian beasts, Jun Chai understood that he could not be reckless. The monsters were too strong for a direct attack, so he decided to test his skills first to find a weakness. His initial observation showed solid defense. The level 30 obsidian crystal beasts had a powerful healing ability always active, making them very difficult to wear down. Before thinking of a new plan, the beasts counterattacked, shooting a barrage of powerful energy rays called mana rays. Jun Chai used his high speed to dodge the web of attacks, aided by the winged shields that Koji summoned for him. The monster's attacks were numerous and constant. In the end, one of the rays hit him, causing him to bleed and sending pain through his back. He realized that his speed was not enough to dodge everything. A quick glance at his health bar showed the danger. His health had dropped significantly. He was aware of his weakness, and that his life points in defense were extremely low. He understood that without Xiao Yi's protective shield, he would have been seriously injured by that blow. Knowing he was weak, Jun Chai tried another plan. He summoned his army of undead, skeletons wrapped in green flames to hold back the obsidian beasts. The power difference was immense. The elite monsters cut through his summons, and the health bars of his skeletons fell quickly. He realized, frustrated that even his army of undead couldn't hold the line against such strong enemies. He cleverly retreated, noticing that the powerful monsters were slow, which bought him some time. He knew that his low health and defense were weaknesses that couldn't be fixed quickly. He decided the only way to beat these creatures was to rely on Kaoju's defensive abilities. To achieve that, his friend needed to level up. Jun Chai looked at Kaoju and told him they would first fight regular, weaker monsters to get stronger. They moved to an area with weaker monsters. Yun pointed to a group of enemies he had seen before and said they were perfect for helping Kaoju level up. In group fights, the shield bearer is the key defense. The other classes depend on him to absorb the damage, allowing them to attack safely from a distance. Following Jun Chai's advice to aim for an S ranking, Kaoju had been investing all his new stat points into defense. This special build, along with the armor stolen from the Ding family's guards, was now proving its effectiveness. Kaoju had developed the key defenses of a true shield bearer and could now block attacks from level 20 monsters, receiving only minor damage. Under the guidance of our overpowered main character, Jun Chai, Kaoju trained hard to master his role as a shield bearer. From a distance, Yun gave him instructions, teaching him the fundamentals of a good defensive stance, how to shift his weight, stabilize himself, and angle his shield to block an attack. Applying the lessons, Kaoju successfully blocked a heavy blow from a crystal monster. He was happy to see a real result from his improved skill. A message showed that his shield's durability was decreasing slower than before, but he was still inexperienced. When Jun Chai warned him to watch out for follow-up attacks, the monster struck again, surprising Kaoju and knocking him down. Before the creature could deliver the final blow, Jun Chai intervened, blocking the attack and saving his friend. He used the moment as another lesson, explaining why it's key to always guess the enemy's next move. He told Kaoju to avoid wide movements with his shield, as they would leave him exposed, and to instead focus on smaller, more efficient blocks to counterattack. Patting his friend on the shoulder, he gave him one final piece of advice. Stay alert, but keep your body relaxed, tensing up only at the exact moment of impact to save energy and react faster. The training continued without a break. With a final pat on Kaoju's armor, Jun Chai encouraged him to keep it up. He positioned himself behind his friend, always supporting him and teaching him another key lesson. Always keep an eye on the teammates behind you. Hearing this, Kaoju showed his determination. They put their training into practice. Fighting together in the dungeon, Yun reminded his friend of a key rule in this action manhwa. When stats are equal, superior skill decides the winner. Their teamwork paid off. After defeating another monster, Yun leveled up again, reaching level 22. He was happy with his progress. Now that Kaoju could face enemies with confidence, they could fight more efficiently, allowing Yun to gain experience faster as well. This manhwa recap shows a classic reincarnation advantage. However, the biggest breakthrough was for Kaoju, who excitedly announced that he had finally reached level 15. Reaching this level was a crucial moment for their revenge. Koi could now learn a powerful skill from the stolen books. He lifted the shining rare skill book for shield armor, a skill that would add an outer layer to his shield. This would give him great durability and defense that would grow with his stats, making him a stronger tank. With his high level, Chi learned the shield armor skill, the last skill book he could use from the Ding family's collection. The new skill emerged as a green armor layer over his shield, greatly enhancing his defense. Yun also noticed that the defensive boost would be useful when facing the obsidian beasts again. Elsewhere in the Crystal Pillar Canyon, 3 men from the school's teaching team were observing the same group of elite obsidian beasts that Jun Chai and Chao had seen earlier. The teachers were confused by so many types of elite vagabonds together. They decided that the monsters were too dangerous for the students and needed to be eliminated. However, they knew how difficult it would be. Although they were confident in handling regular level 30 monsters, the elite vagabonds were another story, much more powerful and unpredictable. Their discussion was interrupted when they saw a student's distress signal light up the sky. Forced to change their plans, the teachers decided to stop the house and rescue the students first. As they prepared to leave, they expressed their concern for the group of wanderers. They knew that the monsters were a great threat and that any student who encountered them would be in danger. While the teaching team prepared for the rescue, Pongshen agreed that it was dangerous and offered to stay behind just in case. Leader Lael was about to agree when Jun Chai and Cao Yu suddenly appeared. Jun Chai expressed his concern, suggesting that he and Cao Yu keep an eye on the wanderers. He argued that if the rescue team encountered more powerful monsters, 2 teachers might not be enough to handle it. He approached the surprise teachers and calmly explained his idea. He told them that the types of wanderers were not very fast and, more importantly, had not noticed their presence yet. He promised them that as long as he and Xiao Qi kept a safe distance and just observed, they would be fine, and urged the teachers to proceed without worry. After hesitating for a moment, the teachers accepted the plan. However, before leaving, Lael gave Jun Chai a serious warning. He emphasized that the monsters were very dangerous, and that Jun Chai and Cao Yu should not act alone or try to fight them. He reiterated that they needed to hide because if the creatures saw them, they wouldn't be able to escape. As the teachers walked away, one gave a final desperate warning to Jun Chai to hide well, telling him that he wouldn't be able to escape if the monsters found him. But Jun Chai refused to hide. As soon as the teachers left, he attacked the group of obsidian beasts. Confident, he asserted that it would be the monsters who couldn't escape from him and executed his new plan. He called upon his army of undead to be the front line, facing the initial wave of attacks from the manor beasts. This time, the skeletons were not alone. Zowie, who was now a very strong tank, he used both his enveloping shield and his new shield armor abilities. This created a super strong defensive wall to protect the skeletons. The energy rays, once a great threat, now clashed against the strong shields without causing damage, barely scratching the undead warriors they protected. With the monster's attention firmly on the front line, Yun moved through the chaos and began his fierce attack. This series of strong blows shattered the crystal bodies of the elite monsters. Focusing solely on attacking a shining crystal monster with his fists, he watched as its health bar decreased with each hit. With one precise final blow, he shattered the creature's core and the strong level 30 beast fell. Defeated, it released a ray of light, indicating that there was valuable loot. After successfully defeating one of the powerful wandering monsters, Yun felt good. He noticed he was getting more accustomed to his new support class, effectively using his attacks with Kyoji's defenses and his undead army. However, he knew that his current power was still weaker than in his past life. Although his reversed abilities allowed him to increase his attack power, he was still limited by the low natural base attack of a support class. He wanted a way to further increase his base damage. He recalled other battle rewards, such as the titles earned by defeating strong monsters. The victory granted him another level, and he was happy to see how much experience the rare elite monsters provided. As he approached the monster's body to collect the dropped items, a message confirmed that he had successfully obtained the valuable rewards. While Yun Chai examined the monster's loot, his eyes widened in surprise. He had obtained a powerful weapon with high attack, a large, shining pink crystal sword that increased his attack power by 552. A slow smile appeared on his face as he saw that this was the perfect solution to his problem. This unique weapon would be enough to compensate for the low base attack power of his class. He equipped the sword, and it transformed in his hands, becoming a larger and more threatening blade that crackled with dark purple energy. With this new power, he was confident that the upcoming battles would be easier. However, his luck was not good. He looked at the other item that had dropped, a skill book, but was disappointed to see that it was not the gravitational attraction skill he had hoped to find. He thought that the probability of obtaining that skill was not high. Standing at the edge of the cliff, he wished for more luck and an opportunity to hunt more high-reward wandering monsters, but his thoughts were interrupted. An explosion similar to a bright red firework lit up the sky in the distance and caught his attention immediately. Yunsha immediately recognized the flare. It was not just a distress signal, it was a special flare that only the school's professor teams used, indicating that they were in serious trouble. The professors who responded to what they thought was a student's distress signal found themselves in a difficult situation. They encountered a large group of elite wandering monsters, all gathered at the entrance of a cave. They did not understand why there were so many of those powerful creatures there. Shortly after, Yongshe, Xiaoqi, Yunsha, and Yunyin also arrived. They were just as confused by the number of monsters gathered in one place. A teacher explained that they had just arrived after seeing the signal and still didn't know what was happening. He pointed to the cave, saying that the signal was coming from inside and that the students who came to rescue must be trapped there. Another teacher explained the situation. They were trying to organize a rescue, but the group of monsters was very large. Even with all the teachers, they didn't have enough people to break through. Upon seeing the powerful Yun Shi and Jun Yin arrive, a teacher looked at them seeking help, saying it would be great if they could assist in the rescue. Jun Sha accepted the teacher's request without hesitation, stating that saving the students was their duty. He took control of the battle by summoning a magical object in the shape of a shining star and using a powerful enhancement spell called Mystic Art of Starlight. The spell enveloped teachers and students, bathing them in golden light that greatly increased their spirit and attack power. The strength of the buff left those who recognized it as an epic-level ability in awe, at least with their allies strengthened. Young Xia focused on the monsters using a powerful spell, gravitational pressure that crushed a wide area of the wandering beasts. At the same time, Yun Yin joined the fight with her devastating attack, Hidden Spike, which instantly destroyed a radiant crystal spike of level 30, showcasing her incredible power. The strength of her attacks was astounding. The students and teachers could only watch in amazement as the previously invincible group of monsters was destroyed. One of the students said that with this level of power on their side, they should be able to rescue the trapped people now, and praised the incredible strength of Yun Yin and Yun X. Observing the incredible display of power from Yun Sha and Yun Yin, Jun Chai was very impressed. He noticed that not only was their team top-notch, but also their skills, and concluded that with their help, the rescue would succeed without problems, even if he wasn't present. With the problem resolved, Yun Chai focused on the greater mystery. As the rescue team advanced toward the cave, he wondered what had attracted so many powerful wandering monsters to gather in this place. Deciding to investigate on his own, he told Chao to stay with the main group while he moved forward to explore junk. He then used his newly enhanced mirror walk ability and faded from reality into the parallel mirror dimension. He saw the purple landscape, noticing that the crystalline structure of the dungeon provided many reflective surfaces, allowing him to enter the mirror world whenever he wanted. However, he knew that this power had limits. He still hadn't figured out how to exit the dimension at will. He remembered how he was expelled when time ran out during his incursion into the Ding family house and couldn't re-enter. As he moved through the mirror version of the cave, passing by the spectral and intangible ghosts of other adventurers, he noticed something strange. The people had ghosts, but the monsters did not. Upon closer observation, he saw that the bodies of the monsters he had killed earlier physically existed in this dimension. This led him to a key understanding of the rules of his abilities, as well as of himself. It seemed that other living beings did not have a physical form in the mirror world, only their dead bodies. Moving silently and invisibly through the mirror world, Yun Chai followed the spectral ghosts of the other adventurers inside the cave. He quickly recognized them as the group of older students, including the so-called Little Z. He knew that it must have been them who attracted the huge group of wandering monsters and, being overwhelmed, had sent out the distress signal. From his position, he saw that they were using the narrow space of the cave to hold their ground, which should keep them safe for a while. However, the main mystery remained. What could be in the cave that attracted so many powerful creatures? He continued to move forward, delving deeper into the mirror version of the cave to investigate. The confusing landscape of crystals made it difficult to find his way with the endless reflections complicating his judgment of things. Suddenly he stopped. His eyes widened in surprise and disbelief. He had found something unexpected, something that shouldn't be here. As he ventured further into the mirror cave, Yun Chai's eyes opened wide. He had discovered the true treasure of the dungeon, a large vein of a special bright green crystal mineral. Now he understood why Little Set and his group had risked so much to come here. Dungeons often have special resources that do not exist in the real world, used to create powerful and unique equipment. The green minerals were one of those resources. They were worth much more than gold. As he looked at a green crystal, a message appeared calling it Mirror Image Crystal Mineral. The message confirmed that he could loot it and take it out of the mirror world. But more importantly, it asked him to return to the real world from here. This was a great discovery. To test his idea, he touched another normal blue crystal and saw the same message. A sly smile appeared on his face as he realized what his ability could achieve. He now understood that if he found any reflective surface, he could use it as a personal exit to return to the real world whenever he wanted. As he walked among the bright green crystals, He picked up a piece of the valuable mineral. He thought about his newly enhanced ability, knowing that there was still much more to learn about his full power, and that he would need to find a good opportunity to study it. For now, he decided to focus on exploring the large vein of crystal he had found. As he delved deeper, he was amazed by the amount of treasure there was. The quantity of mineral was immense, a deposit so large that it would make anyone who extracted it a billionaire. This incredible sight finally resolved the mystery that had been troubling him. He now understood why so many powerful wandering monsters had gathered at the entrance of this cave. They were attracted by this valuable resource and were probably protecting it. In the real world, the rescue was happening. Yunjia continued using powerful spells like gravitational pressure to crush the wandering monsters, while Yunyin continued with her own deadly dual-blade dance that cut through the remaining enemies. Not satisfied with just helping her allies, Sha also showcased his power with the Star Rain art, a devastating spell that impacted a large area. The students and teachers watching were in awe, wondering if all the girl's skills were epic, as her power surpassed even the teachers. With one final cross-slash, the last wanderer at the cave entrance was destroyed. The path was now clear for the rescue team to enter and bring out the trapped upperclassmen, huddled together, tired, but alive. As the rescue team led them out, one of the upperclassmen, Little Shi, expressed his relief, saying he thought he was going to die in that cave. However, the cautious Yunyin quickly put a stop to his relief, warning him not to let his guard down. She pointed out that they still had to fight their way out of the dungeon and that everyone was already exhausted from the last battle. Yun agreed, but added with a confident smile that with her help, the escape would be easier than their last struggle. As the rescued upperclassmen were being led out of the cave, Yunja's eyes suddenly shot open, showing surprise and concern as she sensed something was wrong. Her bad premonition was right. The students behind her let out terrified screams. The reason for their terror was a horrifying sight. The path ahead, which had been cleared just moments before, was now swarming with an unbelievably large horde of elite wanderer-type monsters. It was as if every wanderer in the entire dungeon had suddenly gathered in this one place, completely blocking their path to safety. While the rescue team was being overwhelmed by the returning wanderers in the real world, this action, Manhwa's hero, Jun Chai, was still exploring the mirror world all by himself. He navigated the confusing, maze-like paths of the crystal cave. His path was lit by the eerie green glow of special ore veins. Suddenly, he stopped dead in his tracks, his eyes widening in utter disbelief at the sight before him. He had found an incredible crystal formation, shaped like a tree that reached the very ceiling of the cave. At its peak, a star-like crystal core glowed brightly, pulsing with immense energy. He knew instantly what it was, the legendary secret treasure of the dungeon. As he drew closer to the core, he recalled the legends about such artifacts. If the crystal ores were the dungeon's special products, then this core was the ultimate prize, the one and only secret treasure. These treasures are the condensed form of all of a dungeon's special resources. They take an incredibly long, unknown amount of time to form. They're so rare that an ordinary person might go their entire life without ever seeing one. Most importantly, every single secret treasure, without exception, possesses a unique and powerful special effect, a key element in any good manhwa recap. As Yun Chai reached out to touch the glowing object, he knew he had found the very heart of the dungeon. Smiling, Yun reached for the brilliant green crystal core he had discovered. A system window appeared, naming the object as the Mirror Image Crystal Core. It was a unique secret treasure that, upon use, would grant a permanent 110-point boost to stamina, an increase of 0.5 in mana recovery speed, and a 20% reduction in damage from light and electric-type attacks. The description stated that it was a copy of the true treasure. Junhee was delighted. He understood that the increase in resistance would boost his maximum health, and the rapid mana recovery meant he could use his deceptive blade ability more often, increasing his damage. With a sly smile, he focused on what he thought was the most important effect, the 20% damage reduction against light and electric types. He knew that percentage-based damage reduction was an incredibly rare and valuable effect, even among the best equipment, and being a consumable secret treasure, it wouldn't even take up one of his precious equipment slots. While holding the treasure, a strange thought arose. He knew that just as mineral crystals attracted wandering monsters, a secret treasure of this size should be guarded by a monster much stronger than the wanderers he had seen. He decided not to stay long and prepared to use the secret treasure and leave. A system window offered him two options, to save the item for later or use it now. As he was about to choose to use it, another message appeared, revealing a surprise. Using or taking the item would require spending 10 minutes of his remaining mirror walk time, which took him by surprise. Back in the real world, just as the rescued students began to feel relief, a deep and powerful sound suddenly shook the entire cave. The teachers and students looked up in terror, and even the very powerful Yun Cha and Jun Yin were frozen with expressions of surprise and alarm. Behind the enormous crystal formations appeared a new great threat. It was a huge monster, a larger and more menacing version of the wandering beasts they had just faced, crackling with dark purple energy and making everything in the cave seem small. The group immediately understood the terrifying truth of their situation. They had encountered the Lord of the Wandering Species, a powerful hidden boss of the dungeon. Teachers and students knew how serious their situation was. They were facing a wandering lord, a rare hidden boss separate from the main dungeon boss. Such a creature is stronger than a normal boss, and this one, with its large army of elite followers, was a threat they could not fight against. Panic spread. A student screamed in fear, saying he thought wandering lords only appeared in high-level dungeons. Fear spread, and the others began to lose hope, thinking they would all die. Just when they were about to crumble, Yungsha's calm and strong voice cut through the chaos. He told everyone to calm down, reminding them that the most important thing was to work together to escape. Taking control, he pointed to a narrow canyon, saying it was their only way out of the valley they were trapped in. He explained that as long as they could break through the line of monsters and exit the valley, their greater speed would allow them to escape easily. With one last encouraging shout, he used his powerful mystic art of starlight again, strengthening the entire group. He ordered everyone not to hold back and to charge with all their might toward the canyon's exit. Inspired by Yungsha's leadership, the leader of the teaching team, Li, sprang into action, stating that they at least had to get the students to safety. He activated his light refraction shield. He announced that the professors would take turns leading the charge with him going first, and launched himself into the group of monsters to clear a path. The other professors and students followed close behind him, their combined attacks creating powerful support to push forward. The class members cast healing and defense spells on the frontline fighters, ensuring they could keep advancing. Surrounded on all sides, they formed a tight defensive circle, moving slowly but surely towards the canyon exit, while the professors urged them to hold on. Just when it seemed they might break through, the great Wandering Lord intervened. It let out a loud roar, a skill called Battle Cry. In response, the regular crystal monsters of the dungeon, which were previously inactive, suddenly began to move and march towards the basin. They poured into the canyon. Their massive numbers formed an endless wave of new enemies that surrounded the trapped rescue party. Students and professors could only watch in despair as their escape was cut off by the thunderous horde. Thousands of new monsters appeared, leaving them wondering where they all came from. The already dire situation for the students and professors grew even worse. The Great Wandering Lord used a new skill called Crystal Aura. A massive red aura surrounded the nearby monsters, buffing them with a 20% increase in their health, attack, and defense. The students on the front line fell immediately, caught off guard by the monster's sudden increase in attack power. The strongest group quickly suffered its first casualty. A professor was pierced by energy beams, screaming that the damage was too much to heal, before being overwhelmed by the attacks and dying. A nearby student screamed in horror, announcing that a professor had died. As panic threatened to break them apart, Jun Chai took control once more, ordering the shield guards to the front to form a defensive line and telling the priest to focus on healing the shield bearers to keep them on their feet. Despite his firm and decisive orders, Jun Chai was well aware that their situation was truly dire. He reflected that everyone was already exhausted and barely able to stand. Most terrifying of all, he realized the Wandering Lord itself had not even truly begun to fight, and they were already being pushed to their limits just by its empowered minions. Despite their best efforts, the student and professor forces were no match for the endless horde of buffed monsters. One of the professors, his face grim, said that their efforts were futile and that they couldn't break through at this rate. Seeing that a group defense was useless, one of the more cowardly professors decided to abandon the group. He activated a stealth skill, saying it was every man for himself now. He tried to run, attempting to slip past the monsters unnoticed and escape on his own. Professor Laley yelled at him that his stealth skill wouldn't last long enough for him to escape. His warning proved tragically true. The fleeing professor was immediately spotted by a smaller crystal monster, resembling a turtle, that burst from the ground, blocking his path as the professor froze in terror. The enormous Wandering Lord who had been watching the battle until now finally made his move. He fired a devastating beam of pure energy that struck the ground where the solitary teacher stood. The teacher was instantly obliterated, reduced to ashes by the overwhelming power of the Lord's attack. The explosion was so powerful that it not only killed the teacher but also collapsed the entire canyon, completely sealing the only escape route with a massive landslide. The remaining students and teachers could only watch in horror at the incredible and terrifying display of power. One of them, with a face full of despair, murmured that they could no longer escape. With their only escape route sealed, the Great Wandering Lord looked at the trapped adventurers, his glassy eyes shining as he charged another devastating beam of energy. One of the students screamed in desperation, believing that it was all over and that they were the next target. With no way to dodge the attack, the group braced for the inevitable, knowing they could not block such a massive explosion. But at the last second, one of the students summoned a giant and elegant shield that appeared before them. The shield, an epic quality 70-level equipment called Rocky Mountain Shield, had an enormous amount of defense and durability. The Lord's beam struck the giant shield with incredible force, pushing it back and threatening to break it. Strong teachers and students rushed to hold the shield, knowing that if it fell, they would all be lost. Yunga, with a tense face from the effort, explained their desperate plan. The shield was 70-level equipment, so its durability would be high. However, since the level requirement was so high, no one in the group was strong enough to properly equip it and gain its stat bonuses. This meant they had to physically hold the massive and difficult-to-move object with their own strength. They knew this was only a temporary solution, a desperate move that would only buy them some time. As students and teachers desperately held the line against the Wandering Lord's attack, their spirits began to break. A rescued student asked why such a powerful monster was in the school dungeon. Another, with a face full of terror and anger, blamed the teachers for their situation and questioned why they had brought them there. One of the teachers, with a serious face, wondered if their effort to save the trapped students had been in vain. Professor Laley looked on in pain. His only comfort was that at least the two youngest students, Jun Chai and Chio, were safe and would not face this danger. His assumption was proven wrong. To his astonishment, Kaoju suddenly appeared at his side, pushing him out of the way of an attack. Li did not understand how the young man who was supposed to wait in the valley arrived so quickly. When another monster attacked, Laley issued a warning. Chao reacted instantly, shouting the name of his ability, Rodeo Shield, to protect the teacher. However, the monster's attack was too powerful, breaking Xiao Yi's defenses and shattering the group's perimeter. With their formation broken and their main tank injured, the group was left completely exposed. There was no one left to stop the advance of the wandering group. With their defense completely shattered, the group was left entirely vulnerable, with no one to halt the approach of the feared wandering monsters. In an act of desperation, Kuji charged solo against the monsters, blocking several attacks and protecting the injured master, Lael. The master could only watch in astonishment, wondering how the young student he considered useless possessed such incredible strength. Kuji's solitary effort was not enough. The defenses of the other shield guard were destroyed, and their entire defensive line vanished. Kaohe was also defeated. His broken armor lay on the ground after being thrown by a powerful blow, bleeding and beaten. As the monsters prepared for the final strike, seeing their last defense fall, one of the masters, with a sweaty and terrified face, said that their situation was now truly desperate. Just when the monsters were about to trample the defenseless group, a burst of movement cut through the chaos. To the master's astonishment, Jun Chai appeared standing on the body of a defeated monster. He held his enormous glowing crystal longsword. His eyes displayed a cold and deadly calm. He looked down at his beaten and bleeding friend, Kaohe, and praised him for his bravery. Then he turned his attention to the group of monsters, his voice filled with strong confidence, and said, "Leave the rest to me." A short time ago, in the mirror world, Yun stood before the crystal core. He realized that upon finding the replica, the original version in the real world must still exist. This meant that with his mirror world ability, he could duplicate his harvest of any valuable resource. However, he knew there were limits. He had gathered 75 pieces of the valuable crystal mineral, but extracting them all would require 750 minutes of mirror walking time, much more than he had. He understood that, just like the crystal core, each piece of mineral cost 10 minutes of his time to extract. Faced with this limit, he made a decision. He would loot the crystal core from the real world, but for now, he would use the replica he found in the mirror world to gain its powerful enhancements immediately. A system notification confirmed that he used both the real and reflected versions of the core, doubling the stat boost and granting him a strong 40% immunity to light and electric damage. After using the core while standing on the enormous crystal formation in the real world, he suddenly felt a powerful vibration that shook the entire cave. His eyes widened in alarm as he sensed the disturbance. Wondering what had happened, he sprang into action, jumping from the crystal formation to find the source of the noise. As he leaped from the crystal formation, Jun Chai decided to test his new ability to exit the mirror world whenever he wanted. He passed through the crystal walls, entering once again into the parallel dimension, and noticed that he still had almost 13 minutes left of his mirror walking time. With a confident smile, he confirmed another key part of his power. As long as he had time in his mirror walk, he could enter and exit the dimension whenever he wished. The ability would only cool down when all the time had run out. He immediately tested it by passing through the crystal walls again and successfully returning to reality. However, upon returning, he saw a shocking scene. The number of monsters had grown far beyond what the crystal ore alone could explain. Dominating over all was the giant wandering lord, and Jun Chai finally understood that this creature was the true source of the feeling of danger he had sensed from the beginning. Realizing the great danger, his first thought was for his friend. He knew that Xiao and the others were in great danger, but with his new control over the mirror world, a new plan began to form in his mind. Knowing that he could now enter and exit the dimension at any time, he saw an opportunity to turn the tide against the seemingly invincible boss. With his new control over his ultimate ability, Jun Chai devised a new strategy. He began to enter and exit the mirror world, using the other dimension to move instantly, easily dodging the monster's attacks before reappearing in the real world to strike. This hit-and-run tactic was effective. After defeating several elite monsters, he reached level 24. He paused for a moment to review his new power, calculating that with his increased mana and the mana recovery doubled by the crystal cores, he could now stack his Deception Blade ability for a 330% increase in his attack power. However, Jun Chai remained realistic. He knew that even though his power was incredible, it still wasn't enough to face the giant wandering lord. a creature stronger than a normal dungeon boss. He decided that he needed to reach at least level 30 to have a real chance of winning, and knew he was still far from his goal. The story then returns to the desperate moment in the real world, with the students and teachers about to be killed. Just when all hope seems lost, Jun Chai emerges from the mirror world one last time and appears in the middle of the battlefield, standing over the body of a defeated monster. He looks at his beaten but brave friend, Chao Yi, and praises him for his bravery. With strong determination, he tells his friend to leave the rest in his hands, ready to face the huge group of monsters. Just stepping out of the mirror world one last time, Yun landed firmly on the ground, ready to fight. He took command immediately, asking those with support abilities to strengthen him. As he faced the horde of wanderers, Isha and Kei acted quickly. The powerful high-level student used her mystical art, Starlight, while Kei launched his enveloping defensive shield and shield armor, both abilities boosting Yun with a significant increase in his spirit and attack power. Now stronger, Yun became a storm of destruction, his crystal sword slicing through elite monsters with ease. He knew that although the number of enemies was ridiculous, he was no longer in real danger. After using the 2 secret treasures of the crystal core, his health was much higher than before, and his 40% damage reduction against light and electric attacks made him very resilient. His only frustration was that the monsters were immune to the confusion effect of his chaotic thorn ability, what would have made eliminating them faster. The other students and teachers could only watch in silent astonishment. Teacher Lee and the older students who had previously looked down on him were in utter disbelief. They checked his status bar and confirmed he was a support chanter, but they couldn't understand how his attack power was so high, or what strange skill allowed him to seemingly teleport across the battlefield by traversing the mirror world. Lael, his arm bleeding from a previous wound, watched with a mix of awe and admiration. He couldn't believe the younger student he had been so worried about was this strong. With his newfound power and stamina, Yun became unstoppable, a truly overpowered main character. He tore through the endless horde of elite wanderer monsters. The sheer number of high-quality enemies gave him incredible experience, making this a fantastic action manhwa recap, as he leveled up at an astonishing speed. Ya, who had previously identified him as the intruder at the Ding residence, could only stare in amazement. At first, she thought he was just a bold thief, but now she had to admit his strength was far beyond anything she could have imagined. Yunin was equally stunned, speechless at the incredible display of power from the boy who shared her surname. As Jun Chai continued his relentless assault, he weaved in and out of the mirror world to move and attack. His movements were a blur of purple energy. He gained level after level, one after another, quickly reaching level 28. The other students and teachers who had been on the verge of death moments before were completely awestruck. One of the teachers, Layli, wondered if Yun was a high-level support from outside, but then he remembered seeing him before and realized he was a student. His companion, Little Sat, was even more shocked, unable to believe a student possessed so much power. Despite Yun Chai's incredible performance in this manhwa review, the Wanderer Lord remained a massive threat. As the giant beast prepared to unleash another devastating beam, students and teachers cried out in alarm. Yun Chai, his face serious, knew that despite his recent upgrades, he would not survive a direct hit from that attack. As the Wanderer Lord advanced, its energy beam glowed intensely. The students and teachers, behind their wall of shields, knew their time was running out. Once the giant beast got closer, the shields wouldn't be enough to protect them. Teacher Layli, seeing that Yun had significantly thinned the number of smaller monsters, shouted for everyone to escape toward the other exit. He knew that no matter how strong the mysterious student was, he couldn't fight the Wanderer Lord alone. However, his plan was immediately met with resistance. A student pointed out the problem. The 2 enormous shields were very difficult to move. If they abandoned them to escape, they would be left completely exposed to the Lord's devastating attacks. Another student added that the shields were too heavy to carry and could only be moved by storing them in an inventory, which none of them could do. Just as the argument heated up, a calm voice cut through the chaos, asking them to leave it to him. It was Yun Chai. He presented a selfless plan. He would attack the Wanderer Lord to draw its attention, giving the rest of them a chance to retreat. Teacher Layli was astonished by his sacrifice, asking what would happen if they all fled. Thanks to his reincarnation, Yunsha explained his reason. He knew from his past life that if a wandering lord isn't dealt with, it will gather all the monsters in the dungeon and venture into the outside world, causing a much greater disaster. With a look of serious determination, he declared that he would stay behind and kill the beast, a classic move for an overpowered main character. He activated his deception sword himself, increasing his attack power by 350%, and noticed he still had more than 5 minutes left on his mirror walk, giving him the perfect tool to face the enormous enemy in this thrilling action manhwa. As Yun prepared to face the Wandering Lord alone, Master Lily made the difficult decision to lead the others in a retreat. He told them to get out faster, thinking that no matter how strong Yun Chai was, he would eventually get tired against such a huge enemy. He figured the sooner they escaped, the sooner Jun Chai could escape too. When a student questioned Yun's bold claim that he could kill the Lord, Laley said it was just a brave act to make himself feel better, because he knew how powerful a true wandering lord was. As he ran with the group, Chao Jur felt useless. He looked back sadly, hating that he could only run at this moment. While his friend faced great danger, he silently prayed for Yun Chai's safety. Meanwhile, Yun was relentless. In this part of the Manhwa recap, he kept fighting the smaller monsters, growing stronger with each kill, and soon, he leveled up again. When the great wandering lord fired its powerful energy beam, Yun used his mirror walk to phase out of reality. The beam passed right through where he had been. Then he appeared behind the beast and struck it with a powerful slash from his glowing sword. However, his attack revealed a harsh truth. The wandering lord, a level 42 stone golem, had such high defense and a potent healing ability that the little damage he dealt was instantly healed. He realized that at his current level, it was no use. Its defense was simply too high. As he dodged the wandering lord's attacks, Yun's initial tests confirmed what he thought he'd seen. A large crystal on the creature's head was its core, in other words, its weak spot. The problem was reaching it. Even with many buffs, his attack wasn't enough to get through the lord's strong defense and healing, a key point in this manhwa review. To make matters worse, his time was running out. A quick look at his status showed that the powerful buffs he got from the others were starting to wear off. His own mana was also very low, and he knew he couldn't use his powerful deception sword skill for much longer. He realized he only had one good option. He needed to get stronger. He needed to level up, and fast. Just as he was about to start attacking the smaller monsters again, a brilliant beam of light shot out from a nearby crack in the rock. Yunchi's eyes widened in surprise as he recognized the light. At that moment, the great wandering lord also saw the light, and, showing intelligence, it fired its powerful beam towards the crack. Yunsha vanished into the mirror world to dodge the blast, but upon reappearing, he was shocked to see that the beam was aimed right where he would be. He suddenly realized that the cunning boss had already learned his pattern and was predicting his movements. Forced to reappear in the real world amidst the enormous energy beam of the wandering lord, Yun was caught in the explosion. The attack was a continuous and powerful one that quickly drained his health. Even with his powerful defenses, he knew he couldn't use his mirror walk to dodge, as he had less than 4 minutes left and the ongoing attack would consume him completely in no time. He could only use his army of undead to block the damage, but he knew it was an expensive plan. Reviving his summons would consume a lot of his already scarce mana, leaving him with nothing to boost his attack power for a counterattack. He began to think about whether he should retreat and regroup first, just when he was almost defeated. Another strong explosion impacted the lord's attack. To his surprise, he saw that Yun Chai, Yun Yen, and even Xiaoji had returned to the fight. Yunha explained with a playful smile that this little brother of hers, referring to Xiaoji, had begged for them to come back and help him. Xiaoji, quickly turning his back, said that he hadn't begged. He said that since the number of small monsters had decreased, the group had enough people to escape on their own, which meant he could come back and help. Hearing his friend's brave decision, a sincere smile of gratitude appeared on Yun Cheche's face, who simply said thank you. With his stronger group, Yunha took command. She told Yun Che that the hidden boss was still very dangerous, and that she and the others would cover him so he could retreat. However, Yun Che rejected her offer. He said that with their help, he no longer needed to hold back and used all his power. With his strong allies, he continued to eliminate the small monsters, and his mirror walk time ran out as he reached the key level of 30. Now, at his target level, he knew his attack power was enough to face the Lord. He donned the rare level 30 corrupt knight armor he had obtained in the Din family dungeon, greatly enhancing his defenses. Yunsha looked on, asking if he really planned to attack the Lord's weak point on his head. She pointed out that at this point, it was impossible to reach there, but Yun Cheche was one step ahead. He revealed that he had already obtained the tool he had always wanted, the gravitational attraction skill book he had looted from one of the wandering monsters. The skill allowed the user to attract an object towards themselves. More importantly, its reverse form. Gravitational attraction did the opposite, pulling the user towards the target, with the attraction increasing as the user's strength decreased. With this skill, the Lord's weak point was no longer out of reach. He activated his deception blade, quickly accumulating his attack power. With a confident smile, he promised the others that everything was under control. With his plan ready and his power accumulated, Yun extended a hand covered in purple energy, aiming at the large head of the wandering lord. He then used his skill, gravitational pull, and a powerful force propelled him forward with incredible speed. He shot through the air like a rocket, breaking the rocky ground as he flew straight at the giant monster. In an impressive display of skill and power, landed on the head of the wandering lord, right next to his shining crystal core, his energy-charged sword ready to strike. Below, Yun Sha Yun Yin, who had just claimed it was impossible to reach such heights, could only look up, their faces frozen in awe and disbelief at what he had accomplished. Reaching the weak point of the Wandering Lord, Yun used all his power. He plunged his enhanced sword into the crystal core, causing cracks to spread across its surface. However, the enormous beast would not fall without a fight. As it died, it unleashed one last massive explosion of pure energy from its core, a final effort to take its attacker down with it. Yun was caught in the center of the explosion, his health rapidly decreasing as messages confirmed the great ongoing damage he was suffering, but his defenses and health regeneration held firm. He gritted his teeth and survived. When the light faded, he stood there, battered but alive, as the crystal body of the Wandering Lord shattered into pieces. A series of messages confirmed his great victory. He had defeated the Wandering Lord, earning a bonus of 5,000 experience points, and the prestigious title of Wandering Slayer. More importantly, the hidden boss dropped 2 legendary skill books, Golden Light Shield and Angel's Protection, rewards of great power and value. With a final strike to the core of the Wandering Lord, Jun Chai used all his accumulated power. The beast disintegrated into 1,000 pieces, and the explosion of energy and experience granted him 3 more levels, bringing him to level 33. The students and professors watching were left in stunned silence. Cao Yu could only remark on how strong his friend had become, while Yunsha couldn't believe he had actually killed such a terrifying monster by himself. As he was among the falling pieces, Yun Chai saw 2 beams of golden light emerge from the monster's remains. He obtained 2 legendary items, but before checking his loot, he had to jump to a safe spot. As the great decapitated body of the Wandering Lord began to fall, Yunsha shouted a warning, noticing that Yun was still on the giant that was falling. He skillfully maneuvered among the monster's wreckage, jumping from one fragment to another until he landed safely on the ground. When the dust settled, a large opening appeared on the side of the mountain where the Lord had fallen. The inside was empty, revealing a dark cave filled with skeletal remains of wandering monsters and humans. Observing the ancient battlefield, Yun concluded that an even stronger and older Wandering Lord must have been born here long ago. Now he understood why there were so many intense battle scars throughout the dungeon. As he looked at the ancient empty mountain, Yunche's eyes fixed on a solitary figure against the dim light at the top. His heart skipped a beat as he recognized the armed warrior, still in a final pose of defiance with his great sword firmly planted in the ground. A message from the system confirmed the impossible. It was the body of Xiao En, who was also known by his nickname, Xiao Benben. Junhei could only whisper his friend's name in disbelief. The other students and professors soon arrived at the scene, equally astonished by the sight. Yunha, with a voice full of wonder, identified the figure as the notorious traitor Xiao En. He admitted that although he had heard this was the place where Ding Kun, the hero, killed him, he never expected the scene to be like this. The battlefield showed a last desperate resistance against many monsters and people. She noticed that the heroic and defiant figure before them was very different from the statue in the Modern History Memorial Hall that depicted him trampled. This, she said, did not seem like someone who could be defeated so easily. Yunsha waited in silence. Her face reflected pain and sadness as she looked at the remains of her fallen friend, Qiao Yi. Her great-grandson finally spoke. He told Yun Chai that, although he probably wouldn't believe him, he now thought that his great-grandfather might not have been a bad person. While Qiaoji stood before the remains of his great-grandfather, he began to explain the truth he had found. He told Jun Chai that he spent his childhood reviewing the historical records of his great-grandfather, but that every time he reached the parts about his experiences, the descriptions were frustratingly unclear. Despite this, he managed to find some key details. He discovered that his great-grandfather used to enter dungeons far below his actual level. This made him wonder why an S-rank professional, someone above level 60, would come to a low-level dungeon like this. Then he answered himself with new certainty. It was because this dungeon was one of the few places that could spawn a Wandering Lord, a creature capable of summoning all the monsters from a dungeon and bringing them to the outside world, causing great disaster. He commented that in those times the government did not have enough soldiers to defend against the ongoing threat of monsters emerging from the dungeons. They relied on a few strong and responsible professionals to eliminate the most dangerous threats. His great-grandfather, he said proudly, was one of those heroes. He was not a traitor. He came to this dungeon to prevent a disaster before it started. While Yoon listened silently to this revelation, Koi's confidence began to fade. He admitted that others probably thought he was making things up, and that even his family believed he was seeking mental comfort, distorting the unclear historical text to fit a story he wanted to believe. When he was almost losing hope, a hand gently touched his shoulder. He looked up and saw Yun Chai with an understanding smile, saying, "I believe in you." While Yun Sha and Jun Yin watched with expressions of astonishment and admiration, Cao was completely overwhelmed, speechless at Yun Chai's simple and sincere declaration of faith. A wave of memories flooded Yun as he thought of his fallen friend, Cao Benben, whose heroic legacy was cruelly distorted. He remembered Cao Benben's youthful arrogance, how he boasted that his natural talent meant he didn't need a master and that he would soon be better than Jun Chai. But he also remembered the boy's fear when he got into trouble, desperately crying out for his master to save him from a horde of monsters, only to stubbornly deny that he needed help afterward. His pride hurt. He remembered how his friend worked hard in secret, only to then brag about his new strength. He always chose the weakest shield-bearer class, the Sword Guardian, because no other type of shield was fast enough to keep up with Jun Chai's reckless attacks. He remembered how he always found Xiao Benben, even when he tried to go level up alone, and how his friend would always make up excuses, saying he couldn't resist a good fight, insisting that saving people was just something he did. On the way, filled with a new sense of purpose and a burning desire for revenge, Jun Chai looked at his friend's remains. He declared that for Cao Benben's sake, he would settle the score with the Ding family, who caused his friend's suffering after his death. Back at the Ding family's residence, Ding Shu is recounting the story of the dungeon expedition to his disbelieving father and uncle. He insists that what he's saying is true, that Yun is truly amazing, and they can ask the professor in charge if they don't believe him. He explains that at first, he couldn't enter the dungeon because of his low level, but he waited outside until the survivors came out. The scene flashes back to the students excitedly leaving the dungeon. Everyone saw the giant wandering lord fall from a distance and were amazed at whoever managed to kill a rare hidden boss above level 40. An incredible feat in this action manhwa. Ding Shu, upon hearing this, confirmed that the hero's name was Jun Chai. He couldn't believe that such an overpowered main character had been among the students. He questioned Jun Chai's true identity in the present. After hearing his son's report, the third head, Ding Ji, remains silent for a moment, then stands up and gives a chilling order to gather the Ding family guards and follow him to the traitor's dungeon, where Cowan died. His brother Dingy stops him, recalling a detail from Ding Shu's earlier report about the intruders at their home. With a sinister look in his eyes, he tells his brother to bring the members of the Cao family with them as well. Meanwhile, back in the dungeon for this manhwa recap, Jun Chai looked at one of the legendary skill books he had obtained from the Wandering Lord, the Golden Light Shield. Without hesitation, he offered the powerful book to Qiaoji, telling him he should learn it, as it had no level requirement. And Shai, seeing them, was surprised. She asked why he would give away a legendary skill so easily. Yun calmly explained that the skill was only for shield users, so it was of no use to him. He then added a key detail, suggesting that Chao Hai's great-grandfather, Chao En, probably used this very skill in his time. Moved by this, Cao accepted the book. Yung Xia watched thoughtfully. She commented that while Cao might not have many strong skills, Yun certainly had plenty. She admitted that even though her own skills were high level, she felt far behind him, mentioning his ability to teleport and his power to summon many undead creatures. The mention of the undead made Yun Chai turn serious. His eyes gleamed as he remembered a key detail about his power. His undead summons came from souls he found in the mirror world. This led him to a profound realization. If other souls also went to the mirror world after death, then it was possible that his old friend Chao's soul was waiting there too, a potential path to reincarnation. After this realization, an expression of nervous excitement crossed Yun Chai's face. A system message confirmed that his mirror walk ability was ready again, giving him 30 minutes to explore the mirror world. He wondered if he could use this opportunity to find his friend's soul. With a determined look, he activated the ability, his body enveloped in a familiar purple light as he entered the other dimension. In the blue-green landscape of the mirror world, he found what he was looking for. A ghostly figure, powerful, clad in full armor with a calm yet strong presence. Jun Chai was filled with emotion, whispering the nickname of his fallen friend, Chao Ben, confirming that his friend's soul had been waiting here all along. A long time ago in the real world, time passed and Yunyan approached Yunha, reminding him that they needed to leave soon, as he had an important ceremony to attend. Yunha didn't want to leave, admitting that they had been there for a while, but that the events were more interesting. He looked towards where Yun was and wondered aloud what he could be doing and why he had been absent for so long. Unaware of the meeting in another dimension within the mirror world, where Yun, with a serious expression, spoke to the armed soul of his old friend Chao Benben, saying that he couldn't believe they were meeting again. He mentioned that he had so much to tell him, however, their reunion was interrupted. He sadly noted that it was a shame his friend couldn't respond, when the tranquil spirit was suddenly overtaken by a dark, malevolent energy, transforming its form into a monstrous, roaring undead creature. Yuncho realized with regret that his friend had truly become an undead spirit, a being driven by instinct rather than memory. He admitted that he really didn't want to fight him, but he had no other choice. He launched into the air, dodging an attack and preparing for a tough battle. As their battle began, Yun's eyes shone with purple energy as he focused on his opponent. As they fought, something strange happened. Yun Chai found himself surrounded by floating shards of crystal, each showing a different scene, each one recognized as moments from Ben's life and experiences. One piece in particular caught his attention, showing a clear memory of Ben's final battle against the man known as the hero Ding Kun. While watching the memory of the fight, Jun Chai noticed something odd in Ding Kun's posture and fighting style, finding it strangely familiar. Suddenly, the reflected landscape around him shattered like glass. When the pieces settled, Yun Chai saw that the monstrous undead form had disappeared, leaving only the tranquil and armed soul of Kiao before him again. Completely confused, wondering what had happened. Still trapped in the mirror world, Yun Chai hesitantly called out his friend's name again, only for Xiaowan's tranquil soul to transform once more into a monstrous undead creature that roared. With a purple energy sword, Yun blocked the fierce attack, his expression serious as he understood the truth. A frantic battle began, his blows filled with purple energy clashing with force. Yun Chai understood that his friend was no longer there, only his fighting instincts remained in this evil form. Seeing that it made no sense to fight against his friend's shell, he chose to withdraw, but when he tried to leave, a system message indicated that he could not exit the mirror world from his current location. A wave of frustration washed over him. With no other option, he accepted that he would have to fight. Meanwhile, back in the real world, Cao was alone with a look of surprised determination on his face as he clenched his fist. His solitude was interrupted by the arrival of a group led by Ding and Ding Yi. One asked why Koi was alone, and wondered if Yun had sensed their arrival and fled in fear. Ding looked at the boy with a smug smile, saying that this was only half the fun. Koji, feigning ignorance, asked Ding Shu why he had come and if he was also there to level up. Ding laughed at the act, telling the boy from the Cao family to stop pretending. He directly accused Cao Jue of being the one who helped Jun Chai enter his house and steal his property. When Cao Yu tried to deny it, Ding Shu leaned in threateningly, asking if he thought he wouldn't recognize his screams. The threat sent a chill down Cao Shi's spine, and his face paled with fear. Dismissing the matter with a cruel gesture, Dinga announced with a sinister smile that it no longer mattered, as he had brought Xiao Yi a gift. Shoji's face showed terror as Ding repeated his sinister offer, revealing his gift. As Ki's eyes widened in horror, a group of weary-looking people was brought in by the guards of the Ding family. It was his own family. He recognized them with disbelief, whispering the names of his great-uncles, great-aunts, and finally his own mother, who looked at him with a tired and defeated expression. Before he could understand the situation, one of his elderly relatives, his second grandfather, burst out in anger. He shouted at Cao Qi, telling him to kneel and apologize to the hero's family and to Ding Shu. Cao Qi, looking at the ground, began to say that he no longer wanted to live like this, but his grandfather interrupted him furiously, asking him what he had taught him about behaving in front of the Ding family, yelling at him to kneel again. This was the last straw for Cao Qi. His voice erupted, filled with years of pent-up anger and shame as he shouted, asking if the Cao family was destined to be the dogs of the Ding family for generations. His challenge shocked his family, who looked at him in horror. However, another relative, Qiaoli, stepped forward and agreed with the elder, shouting that for the descendants of a traitor, being dogs was enough. The pressure on Cao grew as another relative, crying, asked him if he wanted them to kill his entire family, pleading with him to think of his father. She reminded him how much his mother had worked to support the family since his father had gone mad, trying to make him feel guilty and give in. After a moment of silence, Koi's attitude changed completely. He turned around and passionately pointed to the skeletal remains of his ancestor on the mountain. He declared to everyone that the truth was that his great-grandfather had come to this very dungeon to stop a cataclysm before it could occur. He insisted that his ancestor was only defeated because many people had ambushed him, leading to his heroic sacrifice. He said he had been gathering information about his great-grandfather for a long time, but he always lacked the evidence. Final scene. Now, with the scene of that final battle, right before his eyes, he had the proof he needed. With fire in his eyes, he proclaimed that his ancestor was not a traitor and that the official history was just propaganda. He turned to his astonished family, telling them that if they revealed this truth, they could clear their ancestor's name and escape their life of servitude. His voice rose with righteous anger as he declared that the Ding family had no right to treat them that way and that their other relatives should never have died for such a lie. His passionate speech was not denied, but met with condescending laughter from Ding Ji, who found it childishly amusing. He then stepped forward calmly, with a smug expression on his face, and confirmed that everything ex-Kiaji had said was true. He admitted that Cao was killed in an ambush and was not evil. Then, without remorse, he revealed the final and damning truth. His grandfather, the hero Din Kun, who planned that ambush to enrich himself. Cao Yue listened in shock and silence to the casual confession of the crime that had ruined his family for generations. With a maniacal smile, Dinge approached the horrified Koi and cruelly dismissed the truth, asking who cared. He said that the official version was the only thing that mattered. Cao Enan was an imperial traitor and therefore was Bill. Stretching his arms in front of his armed guards, He further mocked Kaoju, asking what it mattered if he drove his father mad or killed his relatives, proclaiming that as the children of traitors, they deserved their fate. He then delivered the most devastating blow. Pointing at the terrified Cao family, he revealed that they had always known the truth. He asked Kaoju how he thought the relatives he mentioned had died, implying that they were silenced for knowing too much. With complete mental torment, Ding Wai adjusted his tie with a smug smile and gave a simple and chilling order for them to kneel. Immediately, and without a word of protest, the entire Cao family, including the elders, fell to their knees in submission. Xiaoyi's mother, now kneeling on the cold ground, pleaded with her son, whom she called Aye. She begged him to admit his mistake and stop resisting, telling him it was futile. With tears on her face, she confessed her greatest fear. After her father's madness, she couldn't bear to lose her son. Hearing his mother's plea, Koji stood frozen, filled with despair and conflict. Just when his spirit was about to break, a gentle voice broke the tension. A woman with long brown hair extended her hand and told him not to listen to them. She looked at him smiling and told him he was the best. The encouraging words of the woman seemed to fade away as Ding Shu, with his face bandaged from his last encounter with Jun Chai, advanced with a sneer of contempt. Annoyed by Kaoshi's hesitation, he called him distracted and launched a fierce kick, shouting that he would make him kneel one way or another, but this time it was different. To Ding Shu's surprise, Kaoji's eyes shone with power as he effortlessly blocked the blow with his forearm. Before Ding Shu could react, Kaoji grabbed his leg and with a powerful roar, slammed him against the rocky ground, shattering it with the impact. Standing among the fragments, Kaoju looked at his fallen bully with determination and declared that he would never kneel again. Gasping with rage and humiliation, Ding Shu quickly got up. He couldn't believe it. Furious, he summoned a crystal hammer. Yelling that Kaoju had gained courage and dared to fight, he charged at him, promising to remind him of his place as a punching bag. Just as the hammer was about to fall, Kaoyu impressively transformed. In a flash, he was in full armor, holding a huge shield that appeared just in time to block Ding Shu's furious strike. With a loud crash, the attack was halted, leaving Ding Shu gritting his teeth in disbelief. Now, as a formidable protector, Kaoju stood firm between Ding Shu and his kneeling family, shielding them from harm. He looked at his mother, and then at the attacker, his voice filled with conviction. With a strong blow, he pushed Ding Shu back, shouting that they were not descendants of a traitor, but of a true hero. The sudden strength of Qiaoshi left Ding speechless, while Ding Shu stepped back in disbelief. His mind was spinning, clutching his head, unable to understand how the boy he had always bullied could become so strong. Suddenly, blinded by rage, he charged again, shouting that Xiao Yu was just a punching bag he had hit since they were kids. He swung his weapon in a wide and powerful arc, furious that his former victim dared to defend himself. However, Kaoji faced the blow head-on. His armored body easily absorbed the impact and sent Ding Shu to the ground once more. While his family watched in stunned silence, Kaoji looked down at his defeated bully and declared with strong confidence that he was no longer the person he used to be. At the same time, in the mirror world, an even more desperate battle was being fought. Yun was in a fierce struggle with the evil soul of Xiao Benen. He knew he was facing his friend at his best, a warrior of great power. The difference between their strengths was enormous. Yun knew that if it weren't for Benben being of defensive class and mindless, he would have been defeated instantly. However, Yun had a very important advantage. He was the one who taught Benben all his combat moves. He knew his friend's weaknesses like the back of his hand, allowing him to predict and counter his moves. But even with this knowledge, the fight was incredibly difficult. The spirit's defense was that of a level 60 warrior, and even with his fully powered deception sword, Yun's attacks barely caused any damage. Suddenly, the undead spirit unleashed a massive, explosive wave of golden energy. Jun Chai instantly recognized the move. It was the legendary ability, Golden Light Shield, the same one he had given to Koi moments before. He prepared to block the powerful attack, a look of severe determination on his face, as he realized how difficult this fight was going to be. Back in the real world, a humiliated Ding Shu screamed in fury and attacked Kaoju with a powerful ability called Wild Hammer Shaking Mountains, Koji. Now a strong tank not only blocked the blow, but also sent Ding Shu flying with a powerful punch. Then, with a sweeping shield, he made Ding Shu crash to the ground. Seeing this pathetic scene, Ding mocked his nephew, asking how he could be losing now against the brat from the Cao family. Determined to intervene, he announced that he would personally take revenge for Ding Shu's wrath and charged at Cao Hu with an energy-filled punch. Just as his fist was about to strike, he was stopped by a flash of golden light. He looked on in disbelief as he saw that Cao had summoned a large barrier of shining energy, the legendary Golden Light Shield. With his new power, Kei mocked his attackers, calling the so-called family of heroes nothing but cowards who wouldn't even dare to fight one-on-one. At the same time, in the mirror world, Yun Chai faced the same legendary ability. The immortal spirit of his friend was protected by the same shining golden shield while launching an unrelenting series of purple energy slashes against him. He was well aware of how the legendary ability worked. The power of the golden light shield did not solely depend on the user's stats. As long as it did not receive an attack that exceeded double its resistance limit, it could withstand at least 10 direct hits. However, it had a critical weakness. It was a consumable ability. Even the slightest amount of damage would drain its energy, and Yun was exploiting this flaw, wearing down its power with each strike. Back in the real world, the golden light shield protecting Cao shattered under the attack from the Ding family members. Dinga mocked, unimpressed by the ability. With an evil look, he declared that it wouldn't matter even if Chara himself had used it. Holding Din Shu in a headlock, Cao replied with renewed courage, stating that if his great-grandfather were really there, Ding would be the one on his knees begging for mercy. Infuriated by this challenge, Dinga unleashed a wave of powerful red energy that sent everyone flying. He towered over the armed Koi, mocking his ancestor as a useless fool who died in a low-level dungeon. He continued his speech, claiming that even if Cowan were there, he too would have to kneel. To prove it, he stomped the ground, releasing a gravitational shockwave that caused everything to explode in a violent upheaval of rock and force. The attack hit Cao Jue brutally, making him cough up blood, but miraculously he remained standing. Dingy looked at him with a surprised smile, commenting on how resilient the boy was. He then summoned a shining crystal axe. His expression turned cruel as he wondered aloud how Koyosi would hold up. After cutting off his legs, as he raised the axe to strike, Koi's mother threw herself in front of her son, pleading with the third master to spare him. She said he was young and reckless. She fell to her knees, offering herself in his place, begging Ding to do whatever he wanted with her. Instead, her desperate plea gave Ding a new cruel idea. A wicked smile spread across his face as he looked from the mother to the son. He then gave a horrific ultimatum to the bloodied and cornered Kaioi. If he refused to kneel, he would kill his mother in front of him. Losing patience, Dinga dismissed his threat with indifference, saying there were many other people to kill. As he swung his axe towards Koji's mother, Koji, in panic, shouted for him to wait, his determination breaking as he prepared to surrender. But before he could speak, the entire area was shaken by an explosion of dust and debris that erupted from the ground, blocking everyone's vision. As the dust began to settle, the guards of the Ding and Chao families stared in astonishment at what emerged. Before them stood an imposing, ghostly figure in full dark armor, radiating an intimidating blue aura. Dinga, with his axe still raised, could only stare in utter disbelief. Recognizing the impossible figure before him, he stammered out the name Xiao En. The revelation sent a shockwave through the crowd. Xiao's mother watched, whispering, "Grandfather," in a mix of awe and fear, while the Ding family guards panicked, wondering how a dead man could be resurrected. This was a true reincarnation, a key moment in this action manhwa. One of the Cao family elders, however, recognized the ghostly figure, identifying it as an undead. At that moment, another figure emerged from the cloud of dust, standing calmly beside the formidable undead warrior. It was Jun Chai. He looked at the stunned crowd with a cold, accusatory gaze, reminding them of how they had looked down on Xiao En before. With a smirk of grim satisfaction, he declared that it was only natural for Xiao En to return from the depths of hell to settle the score with all of them. This was the start of his revenge. The tall, spectral figure of the undead Xiao En stood like a guardian before the stunned crowd. After his initial shock, Dinga scoffed, believing it was just a trick, and furiously ordered his guards to attack. A group of armed warriors charged forward with their weapons raised. However, they were met with a display of skill they couldn't comprehend. The undead hero moved with fluidity. His sword and shield were a blur, as he effortlessly blocked all of their attacks at once. The Cao family elders watched in amazement, one whispering in disbelief, asking if that incredible warrior was truly Xiao En. Yao Ji was also astounded, witnessing the mastery of the parry and how he stopped so many skilled guards at once. From a distance, Dinga noticed that the undead was a summon of Yun Chai's, similar to the lesser creatures he summoned during the attack on their home. Seeing that the spirit was only level 33, he laughed. He said that even though Xiao En's spirit was weak, he charged forward with his flaming axe to finish him off. As Dinge's heavy blow came down, the undead warrior's weapon became enveloped in a strange, dense energy. To Dinge's surprise, his attack was parried with such force that it sent him staggering back. Angry and embarrassed, a red aura erupted around him as he called the parry a mere trick, shouting that skill was useless against pure power. He then unleashed a powerful rock smash ability, planning to crush the undead warrior. But just as the attack was about to hit, Xiao En invoked the brilliant shield of golden light. The powerful onslaught crashed against the strong golden barrier, and Dinga could only roar in frustration as he was stopped again by the legendary skill from a safe distance. Yunche smirked as he watched the confrontation. He mocked the struggling Dinga, explaining that even as an undead, Xiao En was still an S-class spirit, and that the legendary shield of golden light was more than enough to keep him busy for a long time. This is a classic overpowered main character move in this manhwa review. Repelled by the shield's power, a furious Dinga noticed its weakness. He ordered his men to attack at once, hoping to overwhelm the shield and drain its energy with sheer numbers. However, his attack was halted by new summons. Skeletal warriors with a terrifying green aura emerged from the ground, facing the Ding family guards and preventing them from helping their master. Annoyed by the delay, Dinge changed his plan. Calling the summons a minor problem, he activated his power, equipping himself with shiny, sturdy red armor. With his power enhanced by burning fury, he declared that the summons didn't matter. He realized that the true target was the summoner. With a roar, he unleashed a powerful skill, Pressure Fist, aimed directly at Yun, knowing that if he managed to kill him, all the summoned creatures would disappear. With eyes shining with malicious intent, Ding advanced, boasting about the high-level equipment given by his grandfather. He was sure that Jun Chai had no chance, but just as his attack was about to hit, a flash of purple light intercepted it. A clean cut sliced through his attack. Dinge was shocked, not understanding how Yun remained unharmed. Before he could comprehend what happened, Yun unleashed a flurry of red energy slashes, a skill called Tearing Claw that completely nullified Ding's attack. Ding could only look incredulously as his skill faded away. In that moment of confusion, Yun Chai appeared behind him and stabbed him with his sword. As Ding staggered from the surprise attack, Yun Chai saw his opportunity and called upon his spectral ally. The undead Cao responded instantly with his sword crackling with bright blue energy. In a synchronized move, Yun jumped high using the undead hero's sword as a platform to propel himself with force. He launched himself towards the injured Ding Ji and performed a spinning slash that sent the third master of the Ding family flying, bleeding and cursing in rage. With his eyes shining with cold focus, Yun Chai continued his relentless assault, unleashing a powerful barrage of purple energy slashes that completely dominated Dingy. Yun moved with lightning speed. His sword cut through Dingy's arm. Dingu screamed in pain, clutching the bleeding stump and calling for a priest to heal him. In his panic, Yun appeared behind him. Dingy instinctively struck the ground with his fist, releasing a strong gravitational shockwave to push his attacker away. Yun Chai simply disappeared and reappeared nearby. Laso, with a superior smile, asked the terrified third master what was wrong, mocking if he was scared. Sweat appeared on Dingy's forehead as he frantically looked around, shouting again for a priest who was not there. Then he understood why they had left. His elite guards were being eliminated one by Yun's army of ghostly skeletons, which now glowed with a terrifying green aura of newfound power. Yun remained calm among his ghostly army with a confident expression. He mocked Denge, asking him if he really believed that his undead were still weak. During the assault on his home, a system window displayed the source of his new strength, an inverted skill that gave his summons a 30% increase in attack and defense, and a damaging aura that harmed nearby enemies. Yun explained that with this legendary ability, his army was now too strong for the Ding family guards. His face reflected absolute terror. Ding, finally understanding how desperate his situation was, with his guards defeated and his power useless, he made a desperate decision, cursing under his breath. He turned and fled, but his escape was immediately cut short. The ground behind him erupted as the undead Shao slammed his greatsword into the ground, making everything tremble. From the broken ground, a prison of ghostly greatswords erupted, surrounding the terrified Ding and trapping him in a cage of blue energy from which he could not escape. Outside the barrier stood Yun, our overpowered main character, his brilliant white hair and aura radiating a serene, immense power. He named the technique for the trapped man. It was the Absolute Sword Shield Array, a special skill of the Sword Guardian class. He added one last chilling remark, stating that no one below S-class had ever escaped it before, challenging the trapped man to try his luck. In a desperate act, Ding raised his remaining gauntlet, which glowed with wild red energy. He shouted at Yun to back off, revealing a void bomb, a powerful S-class item from his grandfather. He threatened to detonate it, boasting that the explosion would kill everyone there, given their current health. Yun Chai, however, remained unfazed. This overpowered main character's expression was calm, almost bored, as he watched the desperate man. With a single, chilling word, he called Ding's bluff, telling him to go ahead. The command startled Ding. He hesitated, screaming that Yun Chai wanted to die. He then tried to regain his confidence, claiming that with his high health, he would survive the blast even if the others died. But Yun Chai had one last, powerful counter, a perfect move in this revenge plot. He calmly stated that it didn't matter, because even if the bomb killed the undead Shao, he could just revive him. As the trapped Ding sweated, Yun Chai appeared behind him like a ghost. His voice broke the silence. He continued speaking, telling the trapped man that even if he survived the bomb, Yun Chai would be completely unharmed by the blast. Before Ding could react to the claim, Yun moved with astonishing speed, his blade flashing in a move straight out of an action manhwa. cleanly severing the man's arm, the one holding the void bomb. The severed arm and its dangerous weapon fell to the ground with a thud. With his enemy disarmed and helpless, Yun, still glowing with serene power, gave a cold command for him to kneel, as if an invisible force compelled him. The ground around Ding's legs shifted and reformed, immobilizing him and forcing him to his knees. Seeing this display of absolute power, Cao Yue, despite the blood on her face, smiled with pride and relief. Nearby, the sorrowful figure of Ding Shu was trapped in the cage of swords, crying endlessly. Yun approached the defeated third master, a key target in his revenge. Placing his foot firmly on his back, he looked down at the man who had caused so much pain. With his sword ready, his gaze cold and calm, he asked the defeated man what value he thought he had left, a truly chilling moment in this Manhwa review. Yun checked the items he obtained from Ding. He saw that he had a lot of things, including hundreds of life potions. Observing one, he noted that it granted 100 health points over 10 seconds, but he knew that even if Ding used these potions, the healing would be too slow to save him from the damage. Concluding this part of our Manhwa recap, he was fated to die anyway. His thought was confirmed as he saw the figure beside him, the undead spirit of Dingai, surrounded by a dark blue aura. Jun Chai remembered that after killing him, Dingai's soul had appeared in the mirror world. He seized the opportunity and successfully converted him into one of his undead. A serious thought then crossed Jun Chai's mind. He could expand his army of high-level undead by killing the strong human enemies nearby. Ding Shu's unconscious body lay on the ground, a stark reminder of how brutal the fight had been. Meanwhile, the members of the Cao family stared at Jun Chai in awe. The second grandfather couldn't believe that someone so young could be so strong. He looked at Cao Yu, who was comforting his mother, and realized that Jun Chai had helped Aji, strengthening him in both heart and mind. But fear soon took hold of them. Chao Li, with panic in his eyes, asked what they were going to do. He was terrified now, certain that the Ding family would exact a terrible revenge for the death of the third master. Another family member agreed, saying that no matter how strong the young man was, he wouldn't stand a chance if the hero got involved. They were talking about Din Kun. They believed that if the hero had killed their powerful ancestor years ago, he would only be stronger now. Jun Chai overheard their concerns and mentally agreed. He knew that once word got out about what had happened, his time to get stronger would be short. With the hero's image in his mind, he knew he had to level up fast to face someone like Ding Kun. At that moment, a system message appeared, surprising him as he wondered if something had been upgraded. The system message that caught Jun Chai by surprise was a notification that his undead army had improved. He figured that sending his undead minions to fight monsters throughout the dungeon had paid off. With his current level and gear, his undead army could control this dungeon. However, he knew this dungeon was no longer sufficient for him to level up quickly. That's why he'd sent his undead out with a more important objective. His main goal was to find the true final boss of the dungeon, the Dungeon Lord. He knew that this creature, a level 41 monster called the Giant Eye Demon, was different from a hidden boss like the Wandering Lord he had fought before. The Dungeon Lord was the very heart of the entire dungeon. By killing it, the dungeon would be cleared, and the entire area would crumble and disappear. This was all part of a larger, more urgent plan. From a distance, Jun Chai watched the dungeon's entrance, which was still being guarded by the professor and the other students. He knew they must have seen Ding Ge take the Cao family into the dungeon. If the Cao family were to leave on their own now, it would immediately arouse suspicion. His only option was to create a massive distraction by defeating the Dungeon Lord and causing it to collapse. The resulting chaos would be the perfect cover for the Cao family to escape without being questioned. This plan also had another benefit. Destroying the dungeon would prevent the Ding family from discovering how Ding Zi died, buying Jun Chai valuable time. With the plan in motion, the powerful undead servant, Cao, poisoned the Dungeon Lord. The system confirmed the success. With 2 messages, Yun leveled up. One indicated that the Dungeon Lord was defeated and the dungeon was cleared. As the dungeon began to pixelate and fall apart, the members of the Cao family watched in astonishment. Cao Li watched in alarm as everything crumbled around them. Yun introduced himself and calmly explained that he had killed the Dungeon Lord. He detailed his plan, saying that the dungeon's destruction would cause utter chaos. This, coupled with the sudden disappearance of Ding Ge, would slow down the Ding family's reaction. He advised them to use the confusion to escape, promising they would be safe for a while. However, he gave them one last serious instruction. He told them that if they were ever interrogated and pressured by the Ding family, they shouldn't be afraid to give him up and place all the blame on him. As the world crumbled into digital pieces, Jun Chai summoned his undead servants, a golden light forming in his hand. Just then, a system message surprised him. It showed that his hidden skill, Mirror World, had gained 5,000 experience points. The message explained that by killing the Dungeon Lord, he had obtained a Dungeon Core spirit which was then converted into elements for his skill. He had a crucial realization. The only way to get the experience to upgrade Mirror World was by eliminating Dungeon Lords. He remembered the huge power boost the last upgrade gave him. With this new knowledge, a clear path forward opened up. He concluded that if he could level up this ultimate skill again, he could quickly close the massive power gap between himself and his ultimate target, the hero Ding Kun. This was the core of his revenge plan. The scene shifts to a rich man's private dungeon, where a mustached guard in armor was patrolling with his partner. He felt their vigilance was unnecessary. He asked his partner if they needed to be so serious and suggested sneaking off to play cards, saying that no one would be foolish enough to break into a private dungeon. Just as he spoke, Jun Chai, a shadowy figure, silently appeared behind them. With a flash, Yun entered the dungeon. The mustached guard stopped, sensing a strange presence, but dismissed it as his imagination. From the shadows, Jun Chai watched them, his plan already in motion. He knew the guards of these private dungeons were at level 30 at most. To him, these so-called safe places were practically defenseless. A montage of his relentless campaign began. He thought about how close he was to reaching his goal. One after another, he broke into different private dungeons, a blur of motion, leaving frightened guards in his wake. He was getting closer and closer to his true objective, the day he would finally be strong enough to kill Ding Kun. That thought filled him with a burning rage. This is the kind of revenge story you see in the best action manhwa. His eyes glowed with hatred as he reminded himself to control his emotions until that moment. To achieve his goal, he began a calculated slaughter of dungeon lords. He fought against a massive beast, reminding himself to stay calm. The system announced that he leveled up and completed the dungeon. He moved on to another, facing lizard-like monsters. His mind focused on how calmness was key to avoiding mistakes. He battled a centaur demon. His determination was firm, clad in powerful new armor, and shrouded in purple energy. He completed another dungeon. His power grew with each victory. Jun Chai's relentless assault on private dungeons did not go unnoticed, a classic overpowered main character move. The newspapers were filled with headlines about the mysterious clearing of many dungeons, causing widespread panic with each defeated dungeon lord. His ultimate ability, Mirror World, earned him 5,000 experience points. Soon, the media dubbed the unknown the Dungeon Vandal. The authorities began a high-level investigation into the matter. In a hidden safe house, far from their past lives, the Xiaos were reading the news. Xiao Lei looked at the newspaper in disbelief, wondering if it was all the work of Jun Chai. The second grandfather, worried, understood the truth, realizing that the rapid clearing of so many dungeons would connect to the incident they were involved in. He concluded that Jun Chai was drawing the Ding family's attention to himself to create a major distraction. With emotion, the second grandfather understood how much Jun Chai was sacrificing. He was doing all this for them to ensure they could escape to a safe place. The family thought about their new life. They were in a secret place, days away from the influence of the Ding family, and managed to hide without a trace. A feeling of hope grew. Chao Li was amazed that Jun Chai was doing so much for them, while another relative expressed relief, believing that they no longer had to live in constant fear and that they were finally safe. For a moment, they believed they could free themselves from the control of the Ding family. Their hope was violently shattered. An explosion shook their refuge. The ground trembled beneath them. As the dust and smoke cleared, a terrifying figure emerged from the rubble, its condescending voice asking if they really thought they could escape. The intruder stepped into the light, revealing himself as Ding Hao, the second level 42 chief of the Ding family, mocking the terrified family, asking if they really thought the Ding family would be foolish enough to pursue the criminal. He said that even though they were not directly linked to the vandal, the mere act of trying to flee from the Ding family was already a crime, and he had come to deliver them a message. His face twisted with rage. His eyes glowed red with malice. He mocked them, asking if they had truly underestimated the power and reach of the hero's family. A huge armored boot fell near the frightened family members. Ding Hao called them delusional traitors, then delivered his last, devastating news. They had already located the supposed criminal. The scene shifted to a heavily guarded large complex, the hero's dungeon, where Yun Sha and Yunyan watched from afar. At that moment, Jun Chai, now at level 42, was at the entrance of that dungeon. His journey had brought him here, and with a voice full of cold determination, he announced that he was coming for Ding Kun. As he prepared to enter, a final message appeared. His constant efforts bore fruit. His secret ability, Mirror World, reached level 3. Having achieved his goal, Jun Chai was with Yung Sha, watching from a distance the guarded hero's dungeon. He knew that the private dungeons he was clearing were only level 30, and continuing to cultivate them was inefficient for leveling up. The problem was that all high-level dungeons were like this, controlled by the state and heavily monitored by the army, with a perimeter of 2 kilometers that no one could approach. This was a significant obstacle. Since his Mirror World ability was limited, he knew that upon entering the parallel world, he could only explore within a radius of 200 meters from the entrance, which made it impossible to go unnoticed through the security area without being seen. Turning to the person he had arranged to meet, He realized he would need to rely on Yunjia for help. Yunjia, with a playful and wise smile, guessed what he wanted. She asked if he had invited her just to guide him to the dungeon before teasingly telling him it was impossible. She explained that no matter what he knew about her, even she couldn't enter without the proper pass. At that moment, Yun Chai showed her 2 temporary access permits, the same ones he had stolen from the Ding family. He had come prepared. Seeing this, Yun Sha took the passes. However, she pointed out a key detail: a temporary pass. He needed an official escort to avoid being investigated. Her expression turned serious. Her eyes shone intensely. She asked him for his true reason, why he needed to go through the Ding family and enter this specific dungeon so secretly. Yun Chai began to explain, pointing to a distant mountain. He reminded her of what he had seen in the traitor's dungeon, the heroic last stand of Chaoen. He argued that since Xiao was the evil person the propaganda claimed, it was likely that the entire story of the rebellion was also dubious and deserved investigation. Yunsha was not convinced by Yun Chai's explanation. She seriously asked him if he thought she was foolish. She listed the problems with his story, pointing out that it made no sense for him, a stranger, to risk upsetting a powerful hero just for Xiaoi. More importantly, she reminded him that he had already broken into the Ding house before the events in the traitor's dungeon. She questioned him, asking if he was saying that he somehow foresaw the truth about Ken and stole the access passes beforehand, just for this. Then she revealed another key piece of information she had. Recently, Ding had entered that same traitor's dungeon to cause trouble for Yun Chai and Kawi. However, he disappeared shortly after and had not been found since. Yun Sha, piecing everything together, looked at him with sharp, analytical eyes. She concluded that his actions were not simply those of someone confronting a hero, but rather seemed to have a deep personal hatred towards the hero. As she spoke, her gaze hardened. A slow and dangerous realization dawned on her. Connecting the last dots, she noted his name, Jun Chai. Her eyes narrowed as she expressed her suspicion, asking if he had any relation to the traitor of the rebellion, also known as Yun Chai. Yun Chai responded to her accusation with a playful and disarming smile. Instead of answering directly, he returned the question, pointing out that his last name was also Yun. He asked if that implied she was also linked to the famous traitor. The reverse question clearly unsettled her. She stammered, insisting that she hadn't done all the suspicious things he had done. Then, in a moment of frustration, revealed a secret. Her last name was actually not Yun. She confessed that she had only changed her name to avoid being bothered. Yunsha playfully took advantage of her confession, pointing out that if her name wasn't real, how could she be sure that his was? Then his tone changed, becoming more challenging. He reminded her that her attitude was not that of someone asking for a favor, and asked if she wasn't afraid that he might reveal his own secret. Regaining her composure, Yunsha raised the access pass with a cold and threatening smile. She warned him that if he reported her to the guards, he would be the one who would truly be finished. They both remained in tense silence, with secrets and threats hanging between them. When Yun threatened to expose him, Yuna smiled and confidently stated that she didn't believe he would. This left her confused and annoyed. He explained why he was so sure, reminding her of his actions in the dungeon. He believed that someone who would risk their safety to protect their companions would never join people like the Ding family. To prove his point, he handed her the diary he had stolen from his home. He said he had evidence of the evils of the descendants of the hero Din Kun, who used the family reputation to intimidate and harass the innocent. Yunsha took the diary, but was not impressed and asked if that was his only reason. He said that if he trusted her sense of justice, he was mistaken, as she didn't care about such things. With a haughty smile, she mocked him for being so naive to trust his life to another so easily. Then she asked him a piercing personal question. Have you experienced betrayal before? A shadow crossed Juncha's face as he recalled painful moments from his past life. Silently acknowledging the question about betrayal, Yunshai was surprised by his reaction. He continued explaining that whether he had been betrayed or not, it didn't matter. That wouldn't stop him from trusting people. He said that his trust in her was stronger than that. He thought that her nature was not evil. This sincerity left Yungsha bewildered, murmuring that he didn't seem like a good person. Having made a determination, she challenged him. She stated that if he truly placed so much trust in her, he should follow her. She dared him to see if he would change his mind and betray her in the process. As Yun followed her without hesitation, a drop of sweat rolled down his face. Inside, he was surprised. He found it hard to believe that after everything that had happened, someone could still see her and trust her as a good person. Entering the purple halls of the hero's dungeon, Yun Sha and the hooded Yun Shai were greeted by a guard. The man recognized Yun Sha instantly and greeted her respectfully. He greeted Mrs. Yun Sha, telling her that the hero had been waiting for her for several days and that she could enter, but the guard's friendly demeanor soon turned suspicious. He saw that the old master Ding Dan had arrived shortly before and asked why she hadn't come with him. Then he looked at the hooded figure accompanying her, asking if he was her guard. Quickly, he tried to explain that he didn't doubt her, but the old master Ding Dan had given specific instructions. He warned them that several temporary passes from the family had been stolen, so they had to be very careful with all the visitors. Yung Sha got annoyed, confronting the guard and asking him if this was an interrogation. The guard, nervous, denied it immediately. He then explained the main reason for the heightened security. They received an official notice from the authorities. The criminal who had been wreaking havoc in private dungeons was supposedly heading to the hero's dungeon. Upon hearing this, Yun Sha shot a knowing smile at Yun Chai. Aware of the irony, the guard continued to explain frantically, insisting that it was a routine procedure for their safety. Yun Sha sighed and turned to Yun, whispering that the guards seemed determined to investigate him. Faced with the guard's insistence, Yun Sha laughed and playfully put her arm around the hooded Yun, telling him to let them check. She then leaned towards the guard with eyes shining with authority and asked him condescendingly if he really thought he couldn't recognize his own guard. She kept teasing, suggesting that maybe she was an imposter and inviting them to check her. Intimidated by her display of status, the guard stammered that he wouldn't dare. He quickly accepted that if Lady Yunghai was so sure, there could be no mistake, and signaled for them to pass. As they walked past the guards, Yun Sha let out a quiet and satisfied sigh as she crossed the portal to the dungeon. She thought that Yun's true identity must be even more important than she had imagined. Once safe inside, she turned to him and said that based on the trust he had given her, she fulfilled her promise and brought him. She said she wouldn't interfere with what he planned to do next, but made it clear that her help ended there. Yuno simply thanked her. She then called a hooded skeleton and ordered it to take him and leave. She said that way anything he did afterward wouldn't be tied to her. Protecting her cover, Yun disappeared. Yunha, somewhat impressed by her way of thinking, commented that she had some conscience. After her departure, Yun Chai entered the mirror world, surrounded by the familiar blue landscape. Now without the cloak, he looked at his system. A new inverted ability was displayed before him. With a grim satisfaction on his face, he asserted that he could finally put his new power to use, the power of his newly upgraded level 3 mirror world ability. Yun Chaserv observed the system window showing his hidden abilities. His maximum ability, Mirror World, reached level 3. He decided to test his new power by activating the Mirror World, level 3. The system announced the creation of a secret area. In this new dimension, Yun Chai faced ghostly copies of powerful monsters, some at level 45. He noticed the new function of his ability. The level 3 Mirror World could replicate monsters from the real-world dungeon. This meant he could now train against these powerful copies. Yun called his undead minions to fight with him. He saw that with this ability he could freely accumulate experience in the mirror world without the risk of being discovered in reality. After a bit of training, he exited the parallel dimension and returned to the real world. Several notifications appeared showing that he continued to gain experience. He understood another key benefit of the upgrade. His undead army could stay in the mirror world to kill monsters non-stop and gain experience for him. Although he was back in the real world with his undead army leveling up for him, Yun Chai surveyed his surroundings. Alongside the spirit of Shaoen, he stood on a cliff, gazing at a large and majestic castle city inside the dungeon. He was surprised to see such a city in a secret area and decided it was the perfect time to investigate. As they walked through the forest, Yun recalled the information he'd obtained from the Ding family's diary. He figured this city must be where his target lived. Yun Chai reflected on how little he knew about the so-called hero. He only knew that Din Kun had reached S-Class decades ago and hadn't shown his true strength in public, since not even a high-ranking member like Dinge knew the hero's full power. Yun Chai knew that having more detailed information would give him a better chance of success in his quest for revenge. It was strange. He recalled that in his past life, he knew everyone who reached the S-Class rank. However, Din Kun seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. Hoping to find a clue, he turned to the undead spirit of his old friend. He called him by his nickname, Ben Ben, and asked if he knew Din Kun. However, the spirit of Shaoen just tilted its head. Confused by the lack of response, Yun Chai showed his disappointment, wondering if trying to talk to his undead friend was useless. He believed that by reaching level 3 of his SS rank skill, Mirror World, the intelligence of his undead minions had greatly improved. The improvement was clear in the spirit of Shaoen. However, he concluded with frustration that his friend's soul still hadn't recovered enough to speak properly. Looking towards the enormous castle city inside the dungeon, Yun Chai held on to a small glimmer of hope. He thought that perhaps if he continued leveling up Mirror World, Ben Ben might eventually regain more of his consciousness. Meanwhile, in a grand hall in the castle, Ding Dan descended a wide staircase, informing his father of his concern for his favorite, Ding, whom he called third brother, saying he was still missing and they didn't know his whereabouts. He was speaking to an imposing figure on a throne, a man in intimidating full-plate armor. Din Kun, the renowned hero of the empire. Ding Dan continued his report, showing his anger that the criminal they were after had dared to get so close to their fortress, the hero's dungeon. Din Kun rose from his throne as Ding Dan continued to plead. He reasoned that to silently capture the powerful Ding, This person must have reached the S-class level. For safety's sake, he begged his father, Din Kun, to intervene and handle the threat. Instead of agreeing, Din Kun's response was swift and horrifyingly violent. In a violent blur, his hand, transformed into a dark claw with a red eye, pierced through his son's chest as the life drained from Ding Dan. The dark figure of Din Kun held his son's body. He sneered with contempt, asking how someone so inept, unable to even control his own child, dared to tell him what to do. Ding Dan gasped in disbelief, blood dripping from his lips. The armored figure of Din Kun looked down on him with complete disdain, commenting on how pathetic it was that Ding Dan barely met the requirements for S-class at his age, yet couldn't survive a single blow from him. He continued his cold speech, revealing that the only reason he bothered to keep someone as useless as Ding Dan around was just to take care of his grandson. Ding Gai scolded him even more, saying that not only had he failed that simple task by losing Ding Gai, but now he expected Din Kun to clean up his mess. A look of pure terror filled Ding Dan's bloodied face as he discovered the horrible truth about his father. Din Kun revealed a chilling secret, explaining that without Dinge, he had lost a blood relative. This loss, he said, would cost him years of his life. The scene shifts to the chaotic streets outside the castle, where a cruel young man with slicked-back blonde hair named Dynan, another descendant of the hero, was laughing wildly while sitting on a beaten man who served as his living throne. He cruelly encouraged the starving citizens to fight for scraps of food, a scene worsened by the wolves attacking them as they rushed. A child cried in terror as a wolf approached, and Din Yang's mocking voice could be heard, warning that the food would run out if they didn't eat it first. A tall, hooded figure, a level 60 executioner named Nancy, appeared behind Din and called him young master. Nancy pointed out that Ding Yan's pet, the man he was sitting on, hadn't eaten meat in several days and made a dark suggestion. From a distance, Jun Chai and the spirit of Kao watched the horrific scene. Jun Chai thought grimly that compared to the pure evil seen here, the actions of the other branch of the Ding family he had dealt with seemed almost mild. As Jun Chai observed the cruelty in the streets, a purple aura of rage formed around him. He wondered if he should intervene and reveal himself. However, his attention suddenly shifted to something beside him. The spirit of Xiaobembin erupted in a wave of blue and black energy, letting out a furious roar. Seeing the injustice, Jun Chai looked at his friend's spirit with sadness, calling him by his nickname. He thought that even in his current senseless state, his friend's desire to help those in need remained strong. This triggered a memory that took him back to their shared past. Jun Chai remembered that among all the children in the poor neighborhoods where Benben and Lankin grew up, they were always the kindest and strongest. He recalled when they faced a cruel slave overseer. That courage led him to accept them as students to train them. He hoped they would grow strong to help others in the future. The memory faded, and back in the present, Jun Chai felt filled with guilt. He blamed himself, thinking it was because of him that his friend had become this undead form. At that moment, the spirit of Kiawan turned to him and managed to say a broken and hesitant name, Lan. Jun Chai was stunned by this sign of returning consciousness. He grabbed his friend's spirit, desperately asking if his mind had returned and if he could speak. But the spirit could only manage to say another broken word, Ding. Suddenly, the spirit of Kao exploded with a massive wave of blue energy. He struggled, but finally pieced together a terrifying truth, declaring that Lan is Din Kun. The truth struck Jun Chai like a physical blow. His eyes widened in shock and understanding. The scene returns to the throne room, where Din Kun, armed, was over the body of his son, Din Dan. After wiping the blood from his gauntlet, he spoke the name Yun in a somber and threatening tone. He wondered aloud if someone was using a name so similar to that of his old enemies to provoke him. A wise and dark look appeared on his face as he recalled the years since he heard that name. With a sinister and confident smile, he addressed his old master, who was not present, declaring that he would find out who dared to impersonate his beloved master, revealing his identity as Lanqian. In the streets, the cruel Ding speaks with his enormous orc-like pets, mocking their obedience. He tells them they must be hungry. A maniacal laugh points to the terrified and injured citizens in the square, a scene of violence that he has caused. A crying child kneels next to a fallen man, too scared to move with a look of madness. Din Yangyan says that since people are just toys, his pets should eat them. He gives the order, and a giant orc lunges at the defenseless child. But before the creature strikes, a flash of purple light appears. In an instant, the orc is torn apart by swift cuts. Jun Chai lands softly, back to the chaos, his body crackling with a strong purple aura. His face is cold with fury. His eyes shine intensely. He thinks of the name Lan in disbelief. He cannot understand how his former student can be the same person as Din Kun, the monster causing this horrible scene. His arrival does not go unnoticed. The enforcer Nancy steps forward, demanding to know who he is. While Din watches in astonishment, Nancy laughs, calling Jun Chai a fool for daring to enter the hero's territory to die. But Incha is lost in thoughts of rage, his eyes burning with purple fire. He silently screams, wondering how Lanosia could raise someone as repugnant as Ding. This brought back another memory, a flashback to a simpler time. A young Younghae stood before his two young students, Lan and Cho Ben Enon. He explained that due to the great power of class users, the ancient era of knights had ended. And yet, he told them that as the son of a knight, there were still values he wanted to teach them. He promised them that with their help, their strength would grow far beyond that of normal class users. As he spoke, the young Lankan looked at him with bright and admiring eyes, clearly inspired by his master's words. The story returns to a young Yun teaching his two students, the brilliant Lang Chan and Cho Benben, explaining that if they wish to continue learning from him, they must remember some key things. The first says, "It is to be humble." The lesson is shown alongside a memory of the boys harvesting a field with Lanian playfully boasting about being faster than Benben. Jun Chai reminds them that they are no different from others and must treat everyone with kindness and respect. Then the boys receive their payment from an old man for their work. Ven protests that it is very little, accusing the man of cheating them. Lan, calmer, tries to quickly stop him by telling him not to anger their master. But Yun silences Benben with a firm order. After the lesson in humility, young Yun gives his students a book explaining that it is an extra reward. He tells them to remember this feeling of being rewarded for their hard work and to never become arrogant. The scene shifts back to the current battle. Yun Chai unleashes a furious storm of purple energy slashes. The attack is so powerful that it completely destroys Nancy's arcane shield ability, leaving the executor wounded and shocked by the power of his opponent. Yun observes with cold concentration. Nancy is furious, shouting that his team was of legendary level 30 and that his protective necklace was also destroyed. Behind him, Din Yan, filled with rage, points at Yun, calling him a vulgar plebeian and promising to show him the true power of someone from a higher class. Unfazed, Yun steps forward to face the challenge. This evokes another memory of his second principle, compassion. The memory shows him and the two boys in a destroyed city, giving food and aid to a hungry and defenseless man. Yun says that one must be kind to the weak and use a good heart to combat violence. This is followed by a scene of the two boys bravely fighting against a large man, defending the weak. The last memory focuses on Lan. Yun Chai is behind him as they look at a captured criminal. He tells Lan that since he was rescued from the same group of traffickers, he should understand the helplessness of the weak and judge fairly. Yun Chai steps forward, swings his purple sword, and launches a strong slash towards Din Yangyan and his lackeys. However, the attack passes through them like ghosts. They transform into black smoke, and the real Ding Yancy appears some distance away, surrounded by terrified citizens. Din Yangang mockingly comments on how satisfied Yun must be to have cut one of his illusions. The square fills with dozens of identical copies of Din Yan and Nancy surrounding Yun Chai. The real Ding leans on his lackey's shoulder and cruelly offers Yun Chai the chance to cut more of them. If he enjoys it so much, Yun Chai remains calm. Din Yan continues to mock, mentioning Yun Chai's always angry expression. He cruelly suggests that the anger is for the defenseless citizens, and then wonders with sickly joy if a family member of his is among them. He throws a twisted challenge at Jun Chai, telling him to try cutting them again. He wonders what Yun Chai's expression will be upon discovering that in his fury to take down the illusions, he had actually killed innocents. As this cruel mental game unfolds, Jun Chai begins to empower his deception sword, his sword shimmering with purple energy. As his attack power increases, a split screen shows Yun Chai's advantage. With his mirror world ability, he sees the real world and the parallel at the same time. He observes the terrified citizens and the actual location of his enemies, separated from the many fakes in the square. With his sharp senses, Yun ignores the bait. He advances. His eyes shine purple. His glowing sword draws a wide and powerful arc over the fakes, striking the real Din Yangyan and Nancy. They are left completely stunned, unable to understand how he saw through their illusion. The story flashes back to Yun Chai's third and final principle for his bravery. The memory shows a young Lonkan and a young Kaubanemban bravely facing a large group of monsters. Jun Chai says that one must be brave. He taught them that in the battle against the dangers of the dungeons, there is no room for fear. One must fight for what is right. The memory shows the two boys fighting fiercely, wounded, but not giving up. After the battle, the young Jun appears. An angry Benben confronts him, shouting that they were almost killed, while Lanchan shows his relief that it's all over. Yun Chai smiles and tells his students not to worry, that he was always nearby watching over them. In the face of Yun Chai's power, Ding Yan panics. He admits that his opponent is strong, and in a display of pure cowardice, orders his executor Nenny to stop using illusions and act as a human shield to buy time and escape. As he runs, he shouts a threat over his shoulder, warning Nan that if anything happens to him, his grandfather will kill him, leaving Nancy alone in front of Yun Chai. A terrified Nancy tries to cast a powerful spell invoking a swamp of human illusions. He complains that as a sorcerer, he is at a disadvantage without his illusion magic. Just as he is about to cast a spell, Jun Chai disappears from his sight. Nancy looks around in panic, wondering where he went, but it's too late. Jun Chai suddenly appears behind him, and with a single movement of his sword, he brings him down. The defeated one pleads for his life, saying that he is not from the Ding family, just a hired mercenary, and begs Jun Chai to pursue Ding Yan, who is escaping. Yun ignores his pleas and delivers the final blow without speaking. Meanwhile, Din Yangyan's escape is halted by the large, ghostly figure of the undead, blocking his path. Terrified, Din Yan immediately tries to use his family name as a shield, asking what this thing is and reminding it that he is the grandson of a hero. He threatens the spirit, promising that his entire family will suffer a terrible death if it dares to touch him. Before the spirit acts, Jun Chai appears, summoning a huge dark creature that looms over the terrified Din Yang. As Din Yan screams in terror, a system window appears before him, showing all the equipped items. His robe, skill books, potions, and belt are snatched from his inventory. He can only look on in horror, asking what Jun Chai has done to him. The scene is shown alongside the final principles that Yun taught his students, a stark contrast to the evil he now faces. The fifth principle was honesty, the sixth was justice, the seventh was honor, and the eighth and final was the soul. The great shadowy creature summoned by Yun attacks, causing dark blue energy swords to rise from the ground and fall upon the city. Its target, Ding Yan, lifeless on the ground. His time of terror has come to a swift and brutal end. Standing on a bridge, watching the horrific scene, Yun observes the bodies of the citizens impaled on stakes. He thinks of his former student Lonnie, bitterly reflecting on how he not only ignored all the principles taught, but also betrayed both him and Ben in the past. His sadness transforms into pure rage as he thinks of the evil that Lan allowed his family to commit, and silently screams the painful question of why all this happened, when a voice interrupts his thoughts, asking, "Why?" The shadowy and armored figure of Din Kun, who is Lanan, suddenly appears behind him. Before Jun Chai can react, Din Kun delivers a strong blow to his back, mockingly commenting on how fun it seems to be in his secret place. The blow sends Jun Chai crashing against the castle walls, causing an explosion of rock and dust. Buried in the rubble, Yun begins to heal by casting basic healing spells while assessing his new power. He now wears the spider pearl necklace, the distant roar robe, the underworld serpent pants, the belt, and the ceramic boots from the underworld cave, while his deception sword enhances his attack. Bloodied but determined, he rises from the rubble, his mind still filled with the question for his former student, Lonkan. Why does the shadowy figure of his former student, now identified by the system as the level 71 berserker, Lan, also known as Din Kun, walk towards him amidst the destruction? Instead of confronting him directly, Yun uses a new plan by launching bright shards like mirrors at his enemy. Din Kun blocks the confused objects, wondering what they are, asking if they are mirrors. The shards distract him, and he uses them as portals, suddenly appearing behind his former students. With his enemy caught off guard, Jun Chai brings down his glowing purple sword in a powerful strike, his voice filled with the pain and anger of decades of betrayal. As he screams the question that torments him, "Why did you betray us?" Yun's surprise attack broke a piece of Din Kun's armor. Din Kun, touching his damaged helmet, smiled and said that to break his armor, the speed and attack power must be very high. Jun Chai's eyes shone with an intense purple light filled with rage and pain. Clenching his fist, he shouted Lan's name, who was his former student. He desperately asked why he chose to betray them years ago. Unfazed, Lan Chan questioned the word betrayal while summoning a large pixelated sword. He thought to himself that this intruder knew his old name and was also using the name Jun Chai. He mistakenly assumed that Jun Chai was an assassin sent by an old enemy. With a wild smile, he quickly launched a strong strike with his sword that sent a wave of red energy across the area. Jun Chai dodged the attack, and Lan appeared behind him, mockingly asking if he was trying to impersonate his former master, calling it a bad joke. Ignoring the taunt, Jun Chai attacked again, shouting his question about the betrayal once more, but Lan Chan easily blocked the attack with a look of pure disdain. Lan Chan ignored him, saying he was just a tool and that talking was useless. He quickly counterattacked with a strong blow. The force of their weapons clashing broke the ground, creating a large crater and forcing both to retreat. When the dust settled, the spirit of Chaoan appeared next to Jun Chai. With a serious look, Yun challenged his former student by asking what he would do with his other friend. Filled with rage, the ghost of Canaan charged forward, roaring Lan's name. Lan looked shocked at the ghostly form of his old friend. In an instant, he appeared in front of the spirit of Kion, grabbing him by the neck. With a furious roar, he slammed the spirit's head against the ground, demanding to know how he was still alive. When Lan Qian raised his fist to strike again, Xian's spirit invoked a golden barrier to protect himself, but Lankan shattered it with a single powerful blow. As the barrier broke, Lan understood the truth. He understood that his former friend was now an undead spirit. He saw that although Xian had been revived, he didn't seem very intelligent. While he was distracted, Yun launched a sword strike from behind, but Lankin blocked the attack. Suddenly, 3 new figures emerged on the castle walls above. A man called out to Lan, asking why he had come out. The 3 men, all level 60, said they could have easily handled the intruder themselves. Annoyed, Lan told them to leave. Our overpowered main character, Jun Chai, summoned his aide, invoking the undead spirits of Nani Shi and Ding to fight alongside Zhone, asking them to keep the 3 men entertained. Lankin's eyes widened in surprise as he recognized one of the new spirits, asking if it was his 3rd nephew. He observed the undead Ding and confirmed that his nephew was dead, murmuring, "My kinsman." A flicker of sadness crossed his face. However, his sadness soon twisted into a sinister and evil grin. Looking at Yun with renewed interest, he commented that he was starting to find him interesting. He advanced again, noting Yun's ability to revive someone as an undead. As Yun Chai barely dodged a swipe from his former student's claws, Lan loomed over him, his form becoming more monstrous and his eyes glowing with madness. He called Yun Chai master, desperately pleading with him to prove he was who he claimed to be. With a look of pure madness, he screamed that Yun Chai had to be his beloved master. Bloodied but determined, Yun Chai glared at him with cold fury. He remembered the person Lankin used to be, someone who would help others, even when he himself was a suffering prisoner. As his deceitful sword drained his magic to increase its power, Yun Chai brandished his glowing purple sword in this epic action manhwa scene, shouting in frustration, wondering how his student could have become so insane and twisted. Lan Qian managed to block the powerful blow. Lan Qian responded with a crazed scream, blaming everything on his dear master. Enraged by this, Yun Chai grabbed him, firing back furious questions. He demanded to know what nonsense he was talking about, reminding him that Yun Chai had saved him from slavery and given him power. He asked if Lankin had forgotten everything he was taught, but he only received hysterical laughter in response. Suddenly, Lan's laughter turned to pure rage as he screamed the true reason for his anger, asking why Yun Chai took so long to save him. As they clashed again, his twisted thinking was revealed in a painful memory of his past, where he lay beaten by a slaver. He wondered why he had to suffer so much before being rescued. Then he complained about his life, questioning why, being the son of a simple knight, he was expected to live comfortably with everyone being kind. A memory showed villagers greeting the young Yun Chai with respect. Lankin bitterly asked why Ben, who never suffered such horrors, was allowed to enjoy the same respected life. His deep envy exploded as he asked why Ben was always stronger than him. He screamed at Yun Chai, accusing him of favoring Ben simply because his past was cleaner. Finally, he asked the question that bothered him the most, demanding to know why Yun changed his class to Berserker. He argued with twisted logic that because he was timid and fearful, he should have been a guardian knight with strong defenses, not a reckless attacker. Stunned and silent for a moment, Yun finally responded. He asked when he had ever shown favoritism, reminding Lan that he had always wanted to be braver and stronger, which is why he chose that path for him. Lan furiously rejected this, shouting that it was all because Yun preferred people like Ben. He insisted that he also tried his best to act brave, but then his tone shifted to a mocking laugh. He asked if his efforts made Junhee prefer him more. He then accused his former master of looking down on him from the start because of his past as a slave, telling him to stop pretending. This accusation finally broke Yun Chai's composure. With his eyes glowing with pure rage, he yelled back, asking about compassion and humility, angrily dismissing all the knightly values he had tried to teach. It was Lan who replied, asking if those values would help him live a better life. He cynically commented that the respect Yun Chai got was only because of his power. He mocked that, unlike Ben, who was deceived by Yun, he would never waste time or opportunities for self-improvement just to save others. With disgust, he asked Yun again how he dared to speak of betrayal. Lankin's confession turned into a proud declaration. He said that since Yun Chai could choose Ben, he was free to make his own choice. He revealed that the good brother Luo Way was able to offer him a much higher status and greater power. He brazenly told Yun Chai to look at the results of their choices by comparing Ben's descendants with his own. He laughed with cruel satisfaction, boasting that Ben's family can only serve as slaves under the Ding family. He mocked Yun Chai's status and pointed to a golden statue of a powerful figure, telling him to look at the status that Louis now has. As Yun Chai remained silent, his body crackling with a massive purple aura, he threw out his final mocking question, asking who he thinks made the right choice. In the end, the massive purple energy around Yun grew violently. His bloodied face twisted into a mask of pure fury as he erupted, screaming at Lanyan and calling him a heartless, ungrateful bastard. Driven by rage, Yun Chai leaped forward and threw shimmering mirror shards at his former student. He unleashed a swift and complex attack, teleporting between the fragments to strike from multiple angles at once. A storm of purple energy slashes overwhelmed Lang, who desperately tried to withstand the assault. The force was too much, and Lanen's strong armor began to crack and shatter under the continuous blows. Completely disintegrating after the devastating attack, Jun Chai landed, looking at his hand. He spoke with cold, definitive judgment, agreeing with his former student on one thing. He truly cannot compare to Xiao Benin. With an expression of utter disgust, he delivered his final, crushing insult, declaring that Lan isn't even worthy of being compared to one of Ben's toes.